God shattered the divine kingdom with one strike. Jiang Yan should have been reduced to ashes along with the Federation's last line of defense. He stood upright in his dorm bed, only to find a blue sky outside and media airships broadcasting the hero's triumphant return. Changkong has slain the S-rank Demon God, Ghost Eye, earning the Federation 100 survival points. He led his divine followers to wipe out 73 million Abyssal soldiers, rising to 17th place on the myriad races ranking. Into Jiang Yan's mind like a sledgehammer, because those headlines should have been old news from 10 years ago. He heard the 30th Abyss trial and watched countless demon gods tear the Federation's defenses apart with his own eyes. Gods. Only one had survived, while he himself had been crushed to pieces like a fly beneath a demon god statue. Jiang Yan looked down at his wrist, where a Type I crystal watch, obsolete long ago, glimmered quietly. State. A palm-sized butterfly phantom appeared, its voice so gentle it was almost cruel. March 6, 3027, Master. It was 3027, exactly 10 years before the Federation's destruction. Immediately tuned in to Beihai's official livestream. Above the calm sea, a massive spatial rift was wrapped in a rainbow-colored barrier. Leaped from the rift, slamming against the barrier like a living thing as the number at its center dropped from 913 to 912.5. That wasn't an ordinary number. It was the countdown the Origin Star Federation had left. Years. The barrier would shatter and the abyss would descend. Without enough survival points, the entire planet would be swallowed. Time could perhaps be faked, but the degree of erosion from an abyssal rift could never lie. Jiang Yan had truly been reborn, returning to the day before fate took its turn. He had risen from an A-rank talent to become an ordinary god, commanding his own faction and wielding immense influence in the Federation. Trial, reinforcements from the higher civilization never arrived, and the Empire's intelligence had been fatally wrong. It was just an ordinary trial, but unknown demon gods descended one after another, and the entire front line collapsed in an instant. Looking back now, the betrayal of Nebula Valley and the Stellar Empire's mistake had probably never been coincidences. Notification from the Academy popped up. At 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, report to the first teleportation center for entry into the myriad realms. Man's only chance to change his fate, and a life or death test that would determine how far he could go in the future. Realms descended. Humans could choose to become lords or professionals, pass the novice trial, and obtain a permanent talent. Nearly all of a person's potential in life, even the weakest known gods possessed at least B-rank talents. Divided into 8 tiers, from easy to sovereign, corresponding to talents from D rank to unique rank. Of any given rank, one had to clear the corresponding difficulty, and everyone had only one chance. One of a rare few precious items. Those who failed could only become support staff, clinging to the strong to survive. Especially brutal. The stronger one's followers, the harsher the test. Clearly, the myriad realms were selecting geniuses to fight the abyss. Jiang Yan followed the Academy's arrangement and chose the hard dungeon for the Lord class. His mission was to resist a weak insect swarm. Initial followers, build a defensive line within 3 days, and withstand 10 million zerglings for 10 minutes without being wiped out. It crashed in like a black tsunami, and in less than a minute, the stronghold he had painstakingly built was completely overrun. Instead of his followers dead or wounded, he could only rely on precise commands to scatter the remaining troops and establish new bases to stall the swarm. Initial talent, divine speed, and the swarm's lack of command, he never would have lasted until the final second. 1,288 elite students in that class, only 2, including Jiang Yan, passed the trial at hard difficulty or above. The ceiling of an A-rank talent was merely that of an ordinary god, and even 10 years later, he could still end up as cannon fodder. He wasn't afraid of death, but if he got a second life only to have his divine kingdom shattered by a slap from an abyssal demon god, he might as well kill himself. Fortunately, he was given another chance. Just been reborn from the desperate moment when his divine kingdom was destroyed and an abyssal demon god killed him with a single strike, only to find himself standing outside the Academy's teleportation center. The cries of Senior Jiang from younger students rang in his ears, while before him stood the realm login that determined countless fates. He had been one of the top geniuses in the elite command class, yet in the end, he couldn't even protect his own divine kingdom. This time, he had returned to the morning before anyone gained supernatural powers, before fate had fully unfolded. Senior Jiang, you were incredible in the last virtual battle. This time, you're definitely going to make a name for yourself across the realms. His admiring gaze. Jiang Yan merely smiled and nodded, having buried the shock of his rebirth deep in his heart, powering the world. The Federation needed lords, and it also needed people who could survive the battlefield of countless races. Today's trial would not kill him. It could cost him the chance to ever become a supernatural being. You're still as popular as ever. A sweet voice drifted gently from behind him, and saw Li Miolin, the beauty of the command department, and his childhood sweetheart who had grown up with him. The last thing he saw before dying was her, utterly incapable of fighting, rushing out past the defensive line and running toward him in tears. Why haven't you gone in? Jiang Yan looked at her, an unconscious smile curling his lips. I was waiting for you. Li Miolin tugged on his sleeve as naturally as she always had. The briefing is about to begin. Jiang Yan didn't refuse, letting her pull him through the crowd toward the auditorium inside the teleportation center. Heard that what Li Miolin was about to face was the standard Lord trial, the Earth Burrower defense battle. Machines. No more than 2 could be lost. The test was all about on-the-spot troop deployment and overall command. Ranking somewhere past 1200, passing such a real-time battlefield with no fixed strategy was practically impossible. Jiang Yan could have told her in advance, but in the end, he remained silent. Warning her now would only burden her with pressure, and he would have plenty of ways to find her a high-tier class card later. Fu Chongshan, the dean of the command department, slowly stepped onto the stage, and the aura of a demigod instantly silenced the entire hall. With a wave of his hand, bloody images appeared behind the crowd, charged into hordes of abyssal monsters, using their flesh and blood to clear a path for their comrades, only to be torn to pieces in the blink of an eye. Desperate situations, their forces depleted, yet they still held their ground until the last person fell. The abyss descended. Some of their forebears even detonated their divine kingdoms to slay demon gods beyond their rank, all to win the Federation a slim chance at survival. Fewer than 3,000 slots across all realms in the entire Federation. You must give it everything you've got. The Academy requires everyone to choose the Lord-class challenge whenever possible, because the abyssal battlefield won't hold out much longer. Once the barrier shatters, the world will be completely devoured by the abyss. Stared at the young faces below the stage and demanded in a deep voice, "Do you want to be cowards or heroes?" The auditorium nearly blew the roof off. But Jiang Yan knew that humanity's starting strength ranked nearly at the bottom among the myriad races, and the Lord assessment was unimaginably brutal. Gathering of elites. Only a tiny handful could truly pass a trial at the normal rank or above. Times rang out one after another as the mission emails finally arrived on everyone's crystal watches. After reading her mission, Li Miolin patted her chest in relief. Thank goodness, I got a normal rank Lord mission. What about you? Jiang Yan activated Little Butterfly, and an email unfolded before his eyes. Number 03 of Elite Class 1. Mission: complete a Lord class assessment at hard rank or above. The compensation was a normal rank class selection card, reserved specifically for the most outstanding students who failed the assessment. Lean's expression tightened. Are you sure you can handle it? Don't worry. Jiang Yan smiled. Don't forget, I've consistently ranked in the top 3 of the simulation tournament. Miolin breathed a sigh of relief. She had seen firsthand just how terrifying Jiang Yan was. He could defeat an enemy force 10 times his size. Just don't wipe out, or I'll laugh at you for the rest of your life. She waved her fist and turned to prepare for the assessment. Jiang Yan watched her leave, but his expression gradually darkened. It was nothing to him with his memories from a past life. What truly made him hesitate was the heroic difficulty, or even the desperate difficulty. The level of a god. His odds of clearing the desperate difficulty were still below 10%. Lose his chance to become a lord and could only choose the far less promising path of a class holder. But the Abyssal Demon God who had shattered his divine kingdom surfaced in his mind once more. Those who had charged forward for the Federation, one after another, detonating their divine kingdoms. silent for a long time before letting out a long breath. If he didn't even have the courage to go further, then the future would be nothing more than reliving the crushing defeat of his past life. Possibly talk about. It was just that he had been reborn too late. There was little time left to prepare before logging into the myriad worlds. The teleportation point at the back of the auditorium was a truly breathtaking structure. Constantly shifting, gleaming sphere, where blazing fire and rushing currents intertwined without interfering with one another. Lingered on the sphere's surface as all things perished and were reborn, while shifting rainbow lights swirled around its outer edge. There were 12 such structures throughout the Federation's territory, said to have been bestowed by the creators of all realms. Realms joined the Stellar Empire's Abyss Resistance Initiative. These structures materialized and descended alongside them. First-time cadets all stopped in amazement. This isn't scientific. This isn't physics either. Seen it countless times in his past life. So he walked straight up and placed his hand on the scanning device. His fingertips, and a mechanical voice sounded. Information verification successful. Plane will be assigned at random. You are about to be transported to the transit space of plane G06581. A pillar of light descended, and Jiang Yan vanished in an instant. A of dizziness. A stunning woman in a red palace gown and exquisite makeup appeared before him. She lightly waved her scepter and said, "Welcome to the myriad realms, Challenger. You may call me the guide." Jiang Yan quickly adjusted to the spatial transfer and replied respectfully. The powerful races of the myriad heavens and worlds seemed to favor humanoid forms. Even virtual intelligences were no exception. The guide then had him choose a path of development, Lord or professional. Hesitate. Guide, I wish to undertake the desperate tier Lord assessment. This was a decision he had carefully considered. Though outsiders could not interfere with the beginner trial, as a god-tier powerhouse in his past life, he knew quite a few top-secret patterns. Different difficulty levels were connected. Take the Insect C series, for example. From the weak Insect C to the Origin tier Insect C, the difficulty increased step by step. Insect C required him to build a defensive line within 10 days, withstand 1 billion elite insects led by an insectoid hero, and survive for 10 minutes. One challenger had brought an epic flame dragon, with a talent that could amplify attacks 10,000-fold, yet he hadn't even lasted a minute. Series like Conquering the Land of Star Machines, Breaking Out Through the Southern Heavenly Gate, and the mythic Battle of Chongping, all universally recognized as impossible dungeons where drawing one meant certain death. But some trials could be exploited. 3 years later, a class holder once drew Wrath of the Bronze Dragon King on building defenses, only to discover on the 7th day that there was a transdimensional recruitment point nearby, where resources could be exchanged for powerful heroes and treasures. But he lacked the resources and ultimately failed. He concluded that abandoning defense and focusing entirely on plundering wealth might have been the correct way to clear it, thinking that if he drew a resource-type dungeon, his foreknowledge might give him a slim chance at survival. Interrupted him. Desperation Tier Lord trial successfully drawn. Mission name, Battle of Chongping, Godslaying. Random temporary SS rank talent, Astrology. It will become permanent after you clear the trial. Please select your temporary vassal race. The highest available rank is Superior. Hundreds of vassal race projections appeared. Jiang Yan froze on the spot, then gave a bitter smile. Godslaying was one of the hardest series. Challengers had to join the state of Zhao, break through 13 layers of demonized Qin soldiers, then kill the demonized by Qi. Countless experts in his previous life had already proven that there was no way to exploit this dungeon. Very few could even break through the first layer of blockade. Helpless sigh, Jiang Yan chose the superior vassal race, steel-armored mammoths. He knew perfectly well that this was practically a death sentence. Of all the known dungeons, fewer than 30% were ones he was confident he could fight desperately to clear, and the Battle of Chongping, Godslaying, was absolutely not among them. If the trial was over, he could only hand the crucial information over to trustworthy senior Federation officials in exchange for the high-level class cards he needed. All preparations are complete. Good luck. The guide waved his staff, and the beam of teleportation began to pull him in. Sounded at the same time, synchronizing the timelines of all transit spaces. Please wait. Synchronization failed. The time chains cannot be unified. System self-diagnostic in progress. detected in transfer space G06581. Generating a solution. Jiang Yan abruptly looked up. Space G06581 was exactly where he was. Nothing like this had ever happened in his previous life. A timeline anomaly. Could his rebirth have affected the system of all realms? Entire space was swallowed by darkness, and even the red-dressed guide vanished. After an unknown amount of time, a speck of light appeared in the void, followed by countless modules, many of which Jiang Yan recognized. Dungeon modules, talent modules. His mind reeling. He couldn't help reaching out toward the void. Ding. External contact detected. Intelligent AI has not been generated. Maintenance status confirmed. The system has entered manual mode. Jiang Yan's gaze sharpened as he cautiously moved the nearest talent module. Critical strike, true luck, 10,000-fold return, many children and many blessings. Talent fragments of different colors kept flashing past his eyes. The system reboot seemed to have thrown the rules into chaos. Talents of every rank were mixed together with no pattern at all. Suddenly, a fragment shimmering with 7-colored light caught his eye. It was actually a unique great skill. Members of the opposite sex will unconsciously develop a favorable impression of him and remain drawn to him. To put it more bluntly, it could even let him latch onto a wealthy older woman whose power surpasses his by billions of times. Jiang Yan swiped it away without hesitation. It wasn't that the skill was weak, but that its only level corresponded to sovereign tier difficulty. To this day, no living being in all the myriad worlds had ever cleared a sovereign tier dungeon. There was no need for him to gamble his life on such a remote possibility. He sped up, and fragments like resurrection, scavenging, and kingly aura flashed past one after another. At any moment. So he had to lock in a suitable SS rank talent as quickly as possible. Finally, a fragment glowing red appeared. SS rank. Advance a designated type of creature or skill by 1 level. Each type can only be used once, with a 1-hour cooldown. It wasn't the best choice, but time no longer allowed him to keep looking. Asked the fragment, and a mechanical voice rang out. Manual selection confirmed. Talent loading. Final awakening. So he really could choose. Jiang Yan felt greatly relieved and immediately turned to the dungeon module. It was the Wrath of the Dragon King series, known from his past life to have the lowest difficulty and a shortcut to victory. It had no color coding. Its outer layer resembled a privacy screen, and he had to uncover it to learn the difficulty. Fortunately, the floating panels were engraved with images. Relying on memories from his past life, he could barely make out their contents. Panels filled the void, stretching so far that he couldn't see the end. On the first panel stood a human man atop a pit piled with the corpses of 10,000 people, killing intent soaring into the sky. Of the Battle of Chongping, an infamous dungeon that had crushed countless geniuses. Jiang Yan skipped right past it without a second glance. Calamity of the Undead, endless tide of corpses. One dangerous dungeon after another flashed by in rapid succession. Prompt sounded. System self-check will be complete in 5, 4. There was no time. Jiang Yan forcibly focused his mind and moved the floating panels with both hands at once. Now neared its end. A floating panel engraved with a fire-breathing dragon appeared behind him. Wrath of the Dragon King. Jiang Yan's spirits lifted as he yanked it out. Instant. Light returned to the space, and the stunning guide in a crimson palace gown slowly materialized. Newbie trial dungeon loaded successfully. System rebooting. The timeline has been synchronized. Before Jiang Yan could celebrate, he hurriedly looked at the task panel that had already been revealed. Mission name, the Fallen Holy Dragon King of Light. Overlord rank. Due to its greed for treasure, the Holy Dragon King of Light became utterly violent after its fall and destroys all living beings that enter its territory. The challenger will be sent to the Isle of Exile and may use the island's resources to strengthen themselves over the next 10 days. The barrier will vanish. You must face the starving, enraged Dragon King and hold out until the barrier is restored. At the Overlord rank, it possesses its full power, Diamond rank 10. Caught. One step beyond Diamond rank 10, and one could forge a divine kingdom and enter the realm of the gods. The guide waved her scepter. Please select your temporary trial followers. For an Overlord rank trial, the limit is epic rank. Figures appeared. Fire dragons, behemoth beasts, thunder titans, and even the lowliest slimes. Everything was there. I choose goblins. Jiang Yan didn't hesitate for a second. The guide unusually asked for confirmation a second time. Goblins rank second to last in combat power and have extremely low potential. Are you sure? Yan nodded calmly. The Holy Light Dragon King was a legendary creature, and at Diamond rank 10, it was nearly comparable to a human demigod. Epic kin, its initial level would not exceed level 20. To cultivate a force capable of threatening the Dragon King within 10 days, he would need at least 10,000 silver warriors. It was simply impossible. Isolated island were limited. Raising even 10 silver warriors would be a miracle. Since facing it head-on meant certain death, choosing a fire dragon or a goblin made no real difference. He could only find another way. Someone had once discovered a temporary transdimensional recruitment point during the wrath of the Bronze Dragon King. To possess 2 skills related to wealth. This was Jiang Yan's only chance. He never blamed fate or others. Being able to exploit a system loophole and choose again was already fortunate enough. That, had he known he would draw a sovereign-level dungeon, he should have chosen that unique skill. Now he could only risk everything on one desperate gamble. The guide said no more, waving its staff as a beam of teleportation light descended. Match between the final awakening of your talent and the dungeon's difficulty. It has been replaced with a unique talent of the same type, Ultimate Ascension. Initiating universal teleportation. The trial begins. The island, roughly 60 miles in diameter. It was surrounded by pure nothingness, where not even space existed. A mountain range stretched for 6 miles across the island's center, where a giant gray-white dragon lay sleeping, and the entire plain seemed frozen in eternal stillness. Then, at a certain moment, a rainbow beam fell from the void. The grass and trees began to sway again, and the island's creatures regained their vitality. The central mountain range, Jiang Yan slowly opened his eyes inside a ruined village. A group of ugly, dark green creatures standing barely waist-high danced around him, cheering ho ho ho, without stopping. To Jiang Yan's surprise, he instantly understood their language. The great god has descended to seize even more wealth. Treasure, and women too. The good days are here. Immediately afterward, a notification from all realms rang out in his mind. The sovereign-level beginner trial dungeon, Fallen Holy Light Dragon King, has been activated. Nation was implanted. The seal on the island of exile was about to break, and sensing disaster, this goblin tribe had used its last treasured possession to summon a god from another realm. Because of their faith, they would obey Jiang Yan without question, and his task was to use this power to complete the trial. Followers. Greedy, lecherous, and prone to bullying the weak while fearing the strong, goblins ranked at the bottom among all followers. Jiang Yan sighed and raised a hand for silence. The noisy goblins immediately shut up, looking skyward as they awaited a divine decree. At least they had normal intelligence and could follow orders. Jiang Yan asked, "Which one of you is the leader?" With gray hair and beard stepped forward, clutching a tattered book as he prostrated himself. "Great God, I am Go Byud, chief of the tribe." With a thought from Jiang Yan, the other party's stats appeared. Level 5 Goblin Warlock, overall combat power, 6, faith level, reverence. But the evaluation was brutally harsh. Extremely low combat potential, bottom tier among those of the same rank, highly vulnerable to being killed by stronger opponents, not recommended for investment. He had never expected these goblins to fight. What truly mattered were their 2 talents. Greed increased the chance of discovering hidden treasures, while plunder had an extremely low chance of stealing an item from an enemy. Goblin slingers, warriors, and assassins. Their combat power was generally only around 5, but nearly all of them possessed those 2 abilities. As for the fallen king of Holy Light Dragons, his combat power was probably at least 30,000. There was no hope of winning head-on. Jiang Yan could only gamble that the island had abundant enough resources. When the transdimensional temporary recruitment point opened on the 7th day, he had to amass enough wealth to trade for a treasure capable of turning the tide. Jiang Yan asked Go Byud, "How much do you know about the situation on this island?" Go Byud dropped to his knees in terror. The fallen dragon is about to break free of its seal. The dragon's aura leaking out has scared us too badly to leave the camp, so we know nothing about the island. Them. The gap in strength and rank between them was enormous. Fearing a dragon was simply a creature's natural instinct. So he said solemnly, "Now that I have descended, I will protect you. Immediately scout the island for resources and magical beasts." Later research showed that using the implanted backstory provided by the myriad realms could greatly improve a follower's loyalty and initiative. Hearing the god's promise of protection, the goblins immediately cried out in excitement. "As you command, great god." Jiang Yan selected several goblins with combat power above 6 as captains and assigned 5 teams to explore along separate routes. Deposits, magical beasts, water sources, and food. Avoid hostile creatures whenever possible, and do not throw your lives away. There were only 120 goblins to begin with, and with the island's situation still unknown, he needed them to bring back enough intelligence. Soon, 100 goblins set out in 5 teams, and the fog of war on the virtual map of the myriad realms gradually lifted as they explored. Went outside the camp to chop wood, tasked with building a decent house for their descended god before nightfall. Once the camp fell quiet, Jiang Yan finally began inspecting the base. Aside from dilapidated wooden huts, there were only 2 altars left. It can transform energy-rich materials into soul crystals, the hard currency for upgrading the base and recruiting followers. The recruitment altar can consume resources to summon goblins, with a 10% chance of mutating them into special classes such as warlocks or stone throwers. Only 0.1 soul crystal, with a daily limit of 1,000. The price was cheap, but the number of soul crystals in Jiang Yan's resource inventory was a glaring 0. With nothing to do before the scouting party returned, he opened the cross-server channel for all realms. Combat power leaderboards were still grayed out. Only those who survived the trial were eligible to be listed. The regional channel, however, was already buzzing. Every race from across the myriad realms participating in this round of trials could enter, and real name verification was mandatory. Someone had drawn the Battle of Chongping and was asking for advice on how to handle his commander ordering him to duel by Qi. Was egging him on to chop off his commander's head and surrender, while someone else solemnly warned them that maliciously misleading others was illegal. Just as the channel's argument showed no signs of stopping, a message suddenly appeared at the bottom. Jiang Yan, Sovereign Tier, has joined the channel. What the hell? Holy shit. A big shot is here. After a brief pause, the entire chat interface began scrolling wildly. I've seen a big shot taking a Sovereign Tier trial. Jiang Yan was a little surprised, then quickly understood why. Intelligence on high-tier trials was incredibly valuable. While major factions could send people to attempt them, they couldn't afford unlimited trial and error. For entering the myriad realms was tied to the level of abyssal rift erosion. More slots meant a more severe abyssal invasion had to be resisted. Every slot had to go to the right person and be matched with the right difficulty, so they could cultivate lords and professionals capable of resisting the abyss. Only when a once-in-a-generation genius occasionally appeared would a faction spare a slot for them to challenge a high-difficulty dungeon. Under normal circumstances, changing the trial difficulty without authorization could even land someone in military court. His forehead. After being reborn, he'd been so focused on recalling crucial intelligence that he'd actually forgotten about this. After some thought, he typed into the chat box, "If anyone has information on the wrath of the Dragon King, message me privately. We can trade." He might not get anything useful, but he had to cast a line. Then he turned his attention to the virtual map, forward at a decent pace. The fog of war within 6 miles of the base had already lifted, and quite a few markers had appeared on the map. Corrupted Knoll warriors, a barren exposed iron deposit, and a small jungle filled with man-eating flowers. But as more intelligence came in, Jiang Yan's heart gradually sank. There were only scattered monsters across the entire island, and its resources were pitifully scarce. A reliable way to obtain soul crystals here. Sovereign tier difficulty really was brutal. In his previous life, when he took the hard tier trial, there had been 3 large mineral veins near the base, along with plenty of monsters in the wild. Resources had never been a problem. Starting a strategy match without even being given starting resources. This was one of the easiest instance series, so no wonder no one had cleared the Overlord difficulty. Jiang Yan opened his status panel with a bitter smile. Apprentice Lord, level 1. Currently unable to level up or change classes. Temporary followers. Goblins. Total combat power, only 3. He might not even be able to beat a single goblin himself. His only hope now was his unique grade talent, Ultimate Ascension. Permanently evolve a selected type of skill with a guaranteed random trigger of either Ultimate or Ascension. It had no cooldown and could be used 50 times a day, though each skill could only be used on once. Jiang Yan had originally chosen goblins because he wanted to enhance their skills and have them acquire wealth efficiently. But this island was so poor that even multiplying the returns by 1,000 would mean little. As for the two special effects, he could only test them himself. Goblins who had been chopping would return to the base carrying logs, ready to build a house for worshipping their god. Jiang Yan immediately stopped them. Put everything into the conversion altar. Resources could no longer be wasted on comfort. 10 sturdy trees vanished, yet the altar gave him only 10 notifications. 0.001. At this rate, they would need to chop down 100 large trees just to recruit one goblin. Even if they cleared the entire island, they still could not gather enough for a full company. Jiang Yan sighed, called over a goblin that was about to resume chopping trees, selected its greed, skill, and activated Ultimate Ascension. Light descended, followed by a notification. Evolution successful. Ultimate effect triggered. Greed has been raised to this skill's theoretical limit. Greed Pro Max greatly increases the chance of discovering hidden treasure. Jiang Yan froze for a moment. His previous SS rank talent could only evolve a skill by 1 level and had a cooldown restriction. The gap between it and a unique grade talent was truly terrifying. The island probably had no treasure at all, making the skill useless for now. He immediately locked onto another skill, Plunder. Evolution successful. Ascension effect triggered. Plunder has evolved into a lost skill, Fair Trade. Fair Trade. After hitting an enemy, you may choose any one item you possess and exchange it for one random item belonging to the enemy. Those below demigod rank cannot resist this effect. Another. Indeed, very fair. Jiang Yan's eyes lit up, and he quickly upgraded the skills of all 20 goblins. 8 of the goblins had their plunder skill ascend into Fair Trade. He also tested Greed's Ascension effect, murder and looting. After killing an enemy, there is a chance to learn the location of all their treasure. The stronger the enemy, the lower the chance. It was powerful, but their owners were goblins. Across the countless worlds, there were simply too few creatures that could not defeat a goblin. Other than slimes, what treasure could those things possibly have? A lump of goo? Still, Jiang Yan was already satisfied with gaining a skill like Fair Trade. Next, it was time to test his theory. He nearest knoll on the map and said to the goblins kneeling on the ground with excited faces, "An evil knoll to the west has offended my majesty. Take up your weapons and destroy it." Ho ho ho. The 20 goblins set off at once, while Jiang Yan was protected in the center of the group. The knoll was less than 3 kilometers from the base, and before long, they arrived 200 meters from their target. A bright creature lay beside a swamp, with a green poison arrow knocked on its wooden crossbow. Stop! Jiang Yan held back the goblins who were about to rush in together and checked the creature's information. Corrupted Knoll, level 8, total combat power, 24. Sigh of relief. Good, it wasn't too strong. After positioning the goblins, he gave the order to attack. These were all valuable talents with evolved skills. They couldn't be allowed to die for nothing. But the goblins were too weak. If they were flame dragons or thunder titans, any one of them could instantly kill a knoll. Fortunately, these trial mobs with the fallen prefix were all pretty stupid. Bang, bang, bang. The goblin's presence was so weak that it never triggered the knoll's instinctive wariness. He realized what was happening, for stones had already slammed into its body. This group of goblins had long since evolved their skills, and every attack came with a bizarre trait. Notifications popped up one after another on the All-Realm War interface. The stones traded away mana gems, a pig leg bone, and even the knoll's hunting hand crossbow. The bloody mess flew into a rage. It raised its left hand, preparing to fire a poisoned arrow. It could practically see these green-skinned monkeys screaming in agony from the poison, and it pulled the trigger with a savage grin. But the next second, something felt wrong. Looking down, it found that the hand crossbow in its grip had somehow turned into a dirt-caked fingernail clipping. Spot. Where was its hand crossbow? The goblins gave it no chance to think. A second volley of stones came crashing down, trading away another string of its possessions. A goblin warrior wielding a wooden club seized the opportunity to circle around and smash the knoll with a stunning blow. crossbow. The gnoll had no ability to fight back and was soon beaten within an inch of its life. A stone-throwing goblin ran over as if presenting a treasure and handed the seized hand crossbow to Jiang Yan. Poison Hunter's hand crossbow, fine grade, rating 17. Automatically reloads one poisoned arrow every 30 seconds. Moment. Jiang Yan handed the crossbow to the goblin whose murder and looting skill had evolved. Once the gnoll had been drained of all value, a green poison arrow shot precisely into its throat. The interface notified Jiang Yan that he had killed a fallen gnoll and obtained a soul crystal. Murder and looting activated, directly revealing the location of the gnoll's hidden stash. A route appeared on the virtual map, with its destination near the swamp. Jiang Yan immediately sent 2 goblins to dig it up. A rotten wooden chest was carried back. When it was opened, there were only a few familiar stones inside. Jiang Yan fell into thought. It seemed his guess had been correct. As long as something belonged to an enemy, whether they carried it on them or not, it all fell within the looting range of fair trade. What had buried during the battle had apparently all been traded away by the goblins for stones. With that thought, Jiang Yan suddenly set his sights on the fallen Holy Dragon King of Light. Tradition said that this Holy Dragon King had been seduced into falling by demons because of its obsessive love of treasure. Setting its alignment aside, it had to be incredibly rich. No matter how powerful a diamond rank 10 was, it was still not a god and could not ignore the laws of fair trade. Treasure beforehand, Jiang Yan's odds of defeating it would rise dramatically. He opened the map. Most of the island had already been explored, leaving only a 10-kilometer area around the central mountain range shrouded in darkness. The island's resources were appallingly scarce. There were not even many monsters to kill, and altogether they were worth fewer than 100 soul crystals. Scouting parties sent back important news. An icon for a temporary interdimensional merchant was flashing on the map. Jiang Yan was slightly taken aback. According to his memories from his previous life, merchants only appeared on the 7th day in difficult-level dungeons. Still, arriving early was a good thing. He ordered the goblin squads that had completed their missions to head back and scout the central mountain range instead. He led a team of goblins toward the merchant's location. The entire island was utterly depleted of resources. It could barely support training even one bronze warrior. Their only hope of breaking the deadlock lay with the merchant and the Holy Dragon King itself. After trekking for more than 3 hours, they casually took down a demonized muscle rabbit. It yielded little, but at least its meat was delicious. Pavilion, more than 300 yards from the main force, an old red-nosed goblin was drinking from a cloth sack. It was actually an avatar of Guevara, the thief saint and wandering merchant of the novice realm, and its displayed level was demigod. Jiang Yan told the goblins to wait where they were, then forced a smile and approached. The scent on him, and sneered with undisguised contempt. The stench of low-grade magical beasts, empty pockets, just another broke loser. Jiang Yan stopped short, and even his smile froze. Difference in strength between them. He decided to respect his elders and smiled again. "You're right, sir. I just got here. Would you mind letting me broaden my horizons?" Guevara seemed a little surprised. With a casual snap of his fingers, a list of goods appeared before Jiang Yan. The first item was a sealed angel's heart, priced at 800,000 soul crystals. By spending resources, it could unseal an angel of an unknown rank. A legendary fallen bow, priced at 500,000 soul crystals. There was also a contract to permanently hire 12 gold-rank great swordsmen, priced at 350,000 soul crystals. Even the cheapest basic promotion scroll cost 3,000 soul crystals, and it only had an extremely low chance of causing a beneficial mutation in a lower-ranking follower. He only understood why the intelligence from his previous life had said this merchant's prices were outrageously high. In a sovereign-level dungeon where resources had been weakened to the extreme, forget buying anything. Even 10 days of full-scale harvesting might not be enough to afford it. But scammy as it was, the good stuff on the list was genuinely astonishing. Jiang Yan had been a god-tier powerhouse, yet even his weapon was only perfect grade. As for the heart of an angel, he had never even heard of it. Great swordsman contract, enhanced to the utmost by the goblins, might even qualify to challenge the Holy Light Dragon King. It seemed he had to speed up his conquest of the entire island. Notifications kept scrolling across the war interface. Jiang Yan's goblin army had struck the corrupted giant python, triggering fair trade and obtaining the python's shed skin. Her colony had been wiped out, the corrupted giant wolves had been slain, and the barren iron mine had been successfully excavated. After encountering the transdimensional merchant 2 days earlier, Jiang Yan had divided the goblins into 3 groups. Monsters across the entire island. The goblins' combat power had once again surpassed Jiang Yan's expectations. With their overwhelming numbers and the boost from the ultimate ascension skill, aside from the squad personally led by Jiang Yan, had also paid a considerable price. Fortunately, the island's monsters were not particularly strong overall. After 2 days of effort, the cleanup was finally complete. At this moment, the main goblin force was continuously hauling resources back from all over the island and feeding them into the conversion altar. Soul crystals kept popping up, and the stockpile steadily rose, but ultimately stopped at just 72. That number was far lower than Jiang Yan had expected. He walked up to the recruitment altar and addressed the magic circle directly. Recruit 500 goblins. Crystals were deposited. The altar's inscriptions lit up one after another, and a blinding radiance enveloped the center of the base. When the light faded, 500 goblins appeared in neat formation. 155 goblin warriors and 32 stone-throwing goblins, as well as 13 assassin goblins. The newly born goblins looked around curiously, then immediately dropped to their knees when they saw Jiang Yan. As chorus of ho-ho. At the same time, a pure yet powerful invisible force slowly gathered around Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan touched that force and immediately sensed countless jumbled thoughts. I want to be as beautiful as a god. I hope the gods grant me a female werewolf. This goblin wants a big butt. Faith. It was the key to determining a god's strength. With enough faith, gods could do almost anything. But Jiang Yan had not even completed his Lord-class advancement. He could not use it, and could only have the system of all realms store it for him temporarily. Next, he began upgrading the skills of the newly recruited goblins. Notifications of successful advancement, ascension triggered, and ultimate triggered rang out one after another. Not stop until all 50 uses for the day had been exhausted. Including the goblins advanced over the previous 2 days, there were now 69 with fair trade. Evolved from stone-throwing goblins. Other goblins could pick up rocks and attack as well, but stone-throwing goblins came with an accuracy passive, greater accuracy and range than their peers, perfect for triggering fair trade from a distance. Looking at the unruly sea of green in the base, Jiang Yan could not be bothered to give a lengthy speech. He climbed onto a makeshift platform and simply said, "The evil dragon in the central mountains. Treasures of the gods. I will lead you to destroy it and divide its endless horde." The goblins instantly erupted in excitement and cheered in unison, "Long live the god." Central Mountains, the former holy dragon king of light, Yabrik, was lying in an open field, basking in the rare afternoon sunlight. This realm of space and time was normally frozen, and only when chosen ones from another world arrived for their trial. Eternal stillness. Thus, every unsealing was precious to him. A letter written in dragon script tore through space and flew before him. It said that a dragon lady was being forced by her father to marry an elder of the earth dragons. He loved was Yabrik, and she hoped he would write back soon and propose. Yabrik immediately opened Dragon Messenger and replied passionately, "My dear, ever since I met you, I have lost the ability to fall in love with anyone else. I am willing to marry you." Over and over, it sent the message with satisfaction, only for a red exclamation mark to pop up on the screen. Message failed. You have been blocked. Lick realized that this message was from over a year ago. Because sovereign-level trials were rarely triggered, it had been frozen for far too long, and had missed a reply from one of its beloveds. Away 2 dragon tears when a second letter came flying in. This one was from a lady of the Purple Dragon clan. The 2 dragons had met through the Shake-to-Match feature on Dragon Messenger, and after exchanging letters for a long time, Aberlick had even suggested they meet. She wanted to see its hologram first, promising that she didn't care about looks. Aberlick eagerly opened the letter, but there was only one sentence inside. Ugly. Don't contact me again. No. Its furious roar shook the mountains, and dragon language magic blasted the surrounding rocks to pieces. Once it calmed down, it looked at its grayish-white, corroded body and jet-black dragon claws. Truly was no longer the handsome dragon it once was, all pure white and gleaming with light. But when it looked toward its treasure vault piled high with valuables and greedily inhaled the scent of wealth, proved again. How could female dragons compare to treasure? It stored the treasure vault, protected by 108 dragon language spells, back into its internal space. Then reopened Dragon Messenger and set its sights on a wealthy black dragon woman saved as Goddess number 11. Dragons would only slow down its treasure collecting, but rich dragons could bring it even more treasure. Abyssal had just written a sickeningly sweet love note when its head felt like a mosquito had bitten it. Once, twice, then again and again without stopping. It angrily looked up. Ant-like goblins beyond the barrier, excitedly pelting it with stones. For a moment, Abyssal was completely stunned. Jiang Yan's mobilization, more than 700 goblins set out in full force. At the core of the group were 69 goblins with the skill Fair Trade, and stuffed themselves with rocks, serving as mobile ammunition depots. Perhaps out of fear of the Holy Dragon King of Light's fearsome reputation, there wasn't a single monster in the Central Mountains. The journey was unusually safe, and the goblin army soon approached the location of the seal. The dragon's roar shook the heavens and earth as violent elemental waves swept in every direction. A mountain 1,000 meters tall was flattened in an instant. Startled by that attack. No wonder the description said this dragon was extremely violent. Now that he saw it for himself, the thing really was seriously unhinged. Luckily, it could only wreak havoc inside the barrier and couldn't hurt anyone outside. Back at the goblins, worried the dragons would scare them out of their wits. To his surprise, not only were they unafraid, they were jumping around in excitement. Evil dragon. It must have tons of treasure. The gods are watching over us. It can't hurt us. The treasure belongs to the goblins. Immediately relieved. The power of faith canceled out the fear lesser creatures felt toward higher beings. The barrier also blocked the aftershocks of the dragon language magic, making the goblins believe even more firmly that this was a miracle. Hold formation and keep moving. Command. The group soon arrived at the Holy Dragon King of Light's location. With only the semi-transparent barrier between them, the two sides were less than 500 meters apart. He focused his gaze, and the All Realms panel immediately displayed its information. The fallen Holy Dragon King of Light, legendary rank, Diamond Tier 10. Its total combat power exceeded 48,762. Sharp breath. This strength was already no weaker than his former life's peak demigod state. But strangely, the dragon showed no reaction to them at all, merely raising its head and muttering endlessly at the void. Let an opportunity like this slip by. He immediately ordered all 69 goblins to spread out and attack. Dozens of rocks whistled through the air, and sure enough, the barrier did not block attacks coming from outside. But the goblins' aim was painfully terrible, and most of the rocks fell short midway. Against a dragon hundreds of meters long, they still managed to miss. Fortunately, one stone finally struck the dragon's head dead on. The next second, a notification popped up on the Realm War interface. Fallen Holy Dragon King of Light. The Fair Trade skill has been triggered. You obtained one dragon-slaying greatsword and lost one stone. A 6-foot-long sword of refined steel suddenly appeared in the basket on the goblin's back. The blade pierced through the basket and, together with the stone, pinned the goblin to the ground, making it shriek frantically. A long breath and stepped forward to pull up the great sword, but it would not budge. Only then did he remember that his current combat strength was not even equal to a goblin's, and his face immediately darkened. To keep his subordinates from spreading rumors that a god can't lift a sword, Jiang Yan spent soul crystals in the temporary storage space provided by the Realm War. Dragon-slaying great sword, exceptional grade. Enchantments, sharpness and armor penetration. Rating, 387. To a young man who dreamed of slaying a dragon, only to be killed by a single blast of the Dragon King's spit. Exceptional grade equipment was incredibly rare and would be worth at least 2,000 soul crystals in the trading center. Unfortunately, trading was unavailable during the trial, so he could only let the conversion altar have it at a bargain. The dragon, as if he were staring at a walking mountain of gold. Keep attacking. Don't stop. Ones came crashing down, and notifications scrolled wildly across the war interface. Gold coins, Song of Courage, and all kinds of treasures were continuously exchanged through fair trade. Away the rare items and directly rewarded the gold coins to the goblins. Having gotten a reward, the goblins worked even harder, hurling stones at the Dragon King as if they cost nothing. Snapped out of his obsession with writing cheesy love messages. Roaring in fury, he flew into the sky as a terrifying dragon's might exploded outward, instinctively backed up half a step, only to find that the dragon's aura had no effect on them at all. They immediately grew excited, clutching rocks and howling wildly. Just as Abrick was about to curse at them, a rain of stones came flying straight at his face. But for the mighty Holy Dragon King to be hit by goblins would be utterly humiliating if word got out. Enraged, he pulled out a pitch-black scroll that made souls tremble even through the barrier. This is a scroll from the Undead realm, Hell's Bone Sea. Once the barrier disappears, I'll make you all. Nervous goblin threw a rock. A notification instantly popped up. Fair trade triggered. Hell's Bone Sea scroll acquired. The black scroll appeared in the goblin's hand, while all that remained before Abrick's claws was a broken rock. At the scroll in the goblin's hand, blinking repeatedly. The next moment, a shrill cry echoed throughout the entire mountain range. My Hell's Bone Sea, give it back. He suddenly stopped wailing and caught sight of what the goblins were holding. There were several items that looked incredibly familiar, and his dragon eyes instantly widened. The Staff of Wind, the Dawn Armor, and my treasured complete Dragon Island love photo collection. And furious as he hurriedly checked his treasure vault. No, you damn thieves. My 108 protective spells. Not a single one of them had failed. Fury, the Dragon King completely lost his mind, spiraling up into the sky. With acceleration magic continuously pouring from his mouth, he charged viciously at the goblin army. It would be earth-shattering. But the very next second, there was a loud bang. Abrick slammed solidly into the barrier and screamed as he plummeted from the sky. Even his dragon body was knocked dizzy, leaving him sprawled on the ground, unable to move. He immediately seized the opportunity and ordered the goblins to attack with everything they had. The two sides were less than 200 meters apart, and nearly every rock thrown by the goblins hit the dragon's body. Meanwhile, notifications on the war interface began scrolling like crazy. Triggered. Fair trade skill triggered. Treasures and gold coins kept dropping, quickly piling into a small mountain. Jiang Yan silently gave it a thumbs up. Dragon amassed treasure for him. It had even willingly thrown itself in front of him to be beaten. Such a selfless spirit, devoted solely to helping others, was truly no more needed to be said. The feast lasted for over 3 hours, until the dragon could no longer cough up a single gold coin. Jiang Yan leave with the goblin army, still wanting more. He checked the follower panel and discovered that some goblins' faith had risen from respect to fanatic devotion. It seemed money really did move people's hearts. Wealth was the greatest faith of all. Potential was simply too low, so they would ultimately have to be replaced after the trial ended. Once Jiang Yan had completely disappeared, Abrick slowly opened its eyes and flew into the air. Its gaze was deep and distant, with not a trace of anger left in it. This examiner seems to possess a special ability. After paying such a steep price, perhaps, on the wind, and no one knew what it was truly plotting. Meanwhile, the goblins returned to their dilapidated base laden with loot, excitedly breaking into a bizarre dance. Jiang Yan, meanwhile, reviewed the battlefield records and began to analyze the battle developed at the academy. After every virtual battle, he had to review the gains and losses and identify anything that didn't make sense. Everything seems to have gone too smoothly. Within 10 kilometers of the central mountain range, happened to appear at the spot closest to the barrier. It could easily have flown deeper inside and avoided the goblins' attacks. This dragon had been far too cooperative, to the point that Jiang Yan never got to use the measures he had prepared. Could it be that creatures corrupted by demonic energy and driven to fall all lost their intelligence? Favored him. As long as one's strength was great enough, any scheme could be broken. It was like the battle before his fall in his previous life, when they repeatedly set traps to eliminate the Abyss infected. And just as they seemed poised to turn a hopeless situation around, an Abyssal Demon God from the upper ranks suddenly appeared. It shattered a divine kingdom. With one stomp, it crushed the grand formation around the military camp, destroying all hope outright. Remembering that despair, Jiang Yan reined in his thoughts and walked to the conversion altar. A vast amount of rare treasure poured out from the temporary storage space. Begin conversion. Flickered as it began operating at high speed. the dragon-slaying greatsword, enchanted leather armor, and equipment such as Windchaser's Bane were converted into soul crystals one after another. The numbers on the resource interface kept climbing, but Jiang Yan's heart was bleeding. These were excellent grade equipment, each worth at least 3 million soul crystals on the trading platform. Yet the altar skimmed off nearly 2/3, leaving him with only 1.02 million soul crystals in the end. What a ripoff. This is daylight robbery. But after calming down, Jiang Yan understood that 1 million soul crystals was already an astonishing fortune. No one had ever reached even 100,000, let alone 1 million. Now, he finally qualified to exchange for the treasures of the transdimensional merchant. But night was approaching. Though the island's monsters had mostly been cleared out, he still couldn't let his guard down. Jiang Yan immediately summoned Gobiud and ordered him to select 50 warriors. Island's southeastern corner. Before long, the group safely arrived at the transdimensional merchant. Catching their scent, the red-nosed old man instantly broke into a broad smile. Well, looks like we have a distinguished guest. His disdain last time, Jiang Yan immediately understood why. It wasn't that the old man had become friendlier. Jiang Yan simply had money now. He straightened his back and said calmly, "I'm here to buy a few things. Show me the list." He widened as he raised a hand and projected a holographic display. All kinds of items floated before him and could be rotated at will, while equipment could even be tried on directly. Jiang Yan marveled at how realistic the old man was, but he had no time to dwell on it. Crystals sounded like a lot, but in reality, they could only buy a handful of treasures. His gaze shifted back and forth between the sealed angel heart and the Greatswordsman mercenary contract. Greatswordsmen were powerful mid to high tier human units, possessing shield wall, heavy strike, and recovery. Ultimate ascension, 12 gold tier Greatswordsmen would be enough to hold back the Holy Dragon King of Light. As for the angel heart, its contents might be random, but judging by its price, even the weakest angel was probably stronger than a Greatswordsman. For a long while before finally making up his mind. I want to buy the sealed angel heart. He had never heard of this item in his previous life, and there wasn't a single discussion of it on the Forum of All Realms. The more mysterious it was, the more that proved its astonishing value, especially with a price tag of 800,000 soul crystals. In King being such a nice guy, he never could have saved up this much during the beginner trial. Seeing such a major deal come his way, the red-nosed old man beamed and took 2 swigs of strong liquor. You've got a good eye, kid. This is a treasure I salvaged from a higher plane. Out in the wider world, it would cost at least 1,000 times more. Any emotion, Jiang Yan handed over a handful of soul crystals and asked, "Could you tell me more about it?" Though he had once been a god, he had only been a god in a remote corner of the world, so his knowledge was ultimately limited. If he could pry some secrets out of this old man, it would benefit both him and the Federation. The soul crystals in his hand and smiled in satisfaction. "Since you know how things work, I'll tell you a little. Consider it part of the product description. It shouldn't count as breaking the rules." After saying that, he deliberately glanced into the void, as if testing the reaction of some unseen presence. After waiting a few breaths with no response from the void, the old man finally let out a sigh of relief. It came from a powerful native plane. It had already died, but the gods of that world gathered the power of the entire plane and revived it. But at the very last moment, the abyss invaded. Not even the gods escaped. Said smugly. They tried to uncover the supreme power buried since ancient times, yet couldn't withstand the calamity that came with it. Who told them to reject thee? Before he could finish, a thunderclap suddenly exploded through the void. Man immediately shut his mouth, clearly looking a little flustered. Jiang Yan pressed on. What do you mean by the corresponding calamity? He wasn't trying to make trouble. If the angel heart concealed hidden dangers, he had to get answers. Moved him off. That's a secret. Anyway, it won't affect you chosen ones. Then he said impatiently, "Curious kid time is over. Cash first, goods second." Jiang Yan asked no more questions. After paying 800,000 soul crystals, he received a milky white crystal the size of a fist. A soft glow. It was the sealed angel heart. After checking its description, Jiang Yan's expression darkened slightly. This was a lost divine artifact. Only by spending 20,000 units of faith power did he have a chance to obtain an angel of a random rank. Its of faith power far exceeded his expectations, and even the word chance sounded unreliable. As he led the Goblin Guard army back, he checked the resource panel. His current reserves of faith power stood at only 587 points. Rank or above could provide faith each day, but the amount was unstable. The human heart was the hardest thing to control. Even devout followers could waver if their prayers went unanswered for too long. Only the highest-ranking followers could produce faith power consistently. At present, more than 700 goblins contributed roughly 200 points of faith each day. It came from the small number of goblins who had reached the zealot rank. Jiang Yan felt helpless. That red-nosed old man was as shady as expected. He hadn't mentioned this crucial condition beforehand. Luckily, Jiang Yan hadn't exchanged for any other treasures. Otherwise, even if he gathered enough soul crystals, he still wouldn't have been able to recruit an angel. There was even more outrageous. 10 soul crystals for a single point of faith power. At the same time, the things the interdimensional merchant had revealed also weighed more heavily on Jiang Yan's mind. Native planes, ancient eras, calamities. He had never heard those terms in his previous life. Though the powerful beings in the trial were bound by the laws of the realms, they still seemed to possess considerable freedom. The Empire made Jiang Yan feel that something was even more wrong. On one hand, they sought out subordinate civilizations to fight the Abyss. On the other, they blocked information and hindered everyone from growing stronger. They had even deliberately delayed sending aid before the Federation fell, possibly bring to the Starvale Empire. The goblin's racket interrupted his thoughts. When he looked up, the base was already close at hand. Excited goblins celebrated around the bonfire, constantly tossing looted gold coins into the air. Abyssal monsters here. They probably wouldn't even notice if they were ambushed. Jiang Yan sighed, but didn't stop them. It was simply in the goblin's nature. That was why many people would rather choose the weakest slimes than take goblins as their followers. Jiang Yan had originally planned to replace them after the dungeon ended, but he couldn't bear to give up the fair trade skill. Celebrating goblins, he returned to the conversion altar. Convert the power of faith. Nearly 200,000 soul crystals vanished in an instant, and the altar began to operate. The reserve of faith power had risen to exactly 20,000. Jiang Yan took out the angel's heart and drew a deep breath. Recruit. The milky white crystal flew into the void, bursting with dazzling light from within. Cracks spread across its surface. Once it shattered completely, a phantom gate formed of endless radiance appeared. A breathtakingly beautiful young woman slowly stepped out. She held a pale golden longsword, her hair cascading to her waist, while 3 pairs of white wings gently fluttered behind her. The instant she saw Jiang Yan, she restrained her aura and dropped to one knee. Thank you for granting me new life. Her stats appeared in Jiang Yan's mind as well. An area, unique rank. Class, 6-winged divine spell angel. Level, gold rank 10. Was blind devotion, and she possessed flame judgment, greater prophecy, gate of heaven, and holy light divine arts. Her overall rating was an astonishing 99,999. But the notice was blunt. Limited by Jiang Yan's weakness, her power could only remain at the peak of gold rank. Become stronger as soon as possible. Across both his lives, he had never seen such absurd stats. At gold rank 10, her combat rating had actually reached 100,000, nearly catching up to him when he had been a god in his previous life. She had no business appearing in a beginner trial, or even within the first 10 floors of the Abyss. Unless it was all connected to the fortune of the myriad realms. Ridiculously smooth everything had been so far. Jiang Yan suddenly recalled a rumor from his previous life. When everyone entered the myriad realms, they had a hidden attribute, fortune. Those blessed with extraordinary fortune received all kinds of preferential treatment from the realms. Du Changkong, the Federation's martial god, was one example. He drew the hero-tier battle of Chongping, and though he ultimately failed, he earned the dungeon boss by Chi's favor. Gave him a class-exclusive selection card, but also passed down a supreme technique that allowed Du Changkong to become a god within a few years, far surpassing others at the same rank. Some powerful civilizations even calculated their elite descendants' fortunes before they entered and used spells to alter their fate. Jiang Yan never expected that, after being reborn, he too would become someone favored by fortune. No, perhaps it wasn't just luck. He suddenly remembered the abnormal manual mode that had appeared when he logged in. Could the myriad realms actually have bugs? Jiang Yan shook his head with a smile and stopped dwelling on it. Such matters were far beyond his current reach, and he turned to look at the six-winged angel before him. "Call me Holy Lord." Anelia replied softly. Before the heavenly kingdom fell, the Holy Lord left behind a prophecy. When the myriad realms descended, the young man who returned riding a giant dragon would be the new Holy Lord. Jiang Yan fell into thought. It seemed this was the backstory the myriad realms had given him. Then he asked, "Can you tell me about the heavenly kingdom?" Anelia said, "The heavenly kingdom was once one of the most powerful forces in all the heavens and realms. Beneath the Holy Lord were 4 archangels, 12 seraphim, and 36 angel legions. Each legion consisted of 3 million angels from different classes. The archangels possessed the power of supreme gods, the seraphim had the strength of main gods, and even ordinary legion members ranged from lower gods to upper gods." Jiang Yan's breath caught slightly. The backstories implanted by the myriad realms were usually never wrong. In other words, the heavenly kingdom of the ancient era might truly have been that powerful. It was so powerful, why have I never heard of it before? Anelia smiled. The heavenly kingdom governs faith and destiny. Before you appeared, no one had received destiny's favor. One world once obtained a sealed angel's heart and spent nearly 300 billion units of faith power. They were on the verge of awakening me, yet failed at the very last moment. They tried to glimpse a power they could not control, and destiny made fools of them. At the drooling goblin below. What if destiny guided it to become the Holy Lord? Impossible. Anelia answered without hesitation. The previous Holy Lord was obsessed with looks. Jiang Yan fell silent at once. That really was a convincing reason. The former Holy Lord's prophecy ends here. From now on, you alone are our faith. From this day forward, destiny will obey your will, and we will stand behind you and fight for you. Looking at the powerful yet devout angel before him, Jiang Yan recalled the scenes from his past life, the divine kingdom shattering and the Federation falling. He could not tell whether this was merely backstory implanted by the myriad realms, or whether a powerful being had truly crossed the timeline to bring about everything happening today. But there was no point dwelling on it now. Jiang Yan asked tentatively, "Since I'm the Holy Lord, how do I summon the other angels?" Anelia gave a slight nod, knelt on one knee again, and held up a smaller angel's heart. A notification from the myriad realms rang out. The awakened seraph Anelia, on behalf of the angel race, requests to form a subordinate contract with you and become your retainer. Was formed, his initial retainer race for clearing dungeons would permanently be set as the angel race, a unique grade race that could not be changed. Accept. Jiang Yan's pupils narrowed as he confirmed without hesitation. An item he had casually bought from the transdimensional merchant had summoned a 6-winged angel and even come with a unique grade retainer race. There was no reason to refuse. Once the contract succeeded, it would officially take effect after he cleared the sovereign-level dungeon and defeated the fallen Holy Light Dragon King. Jiang Yan learned the sealed angel's heart's true properties. Its true name was the Light Holy Lord's Verdict of Destiny, a unique grade gem socket item. Whoever awakened it would become the new Light Holy Lord. Once he cleared the dungeon and became an official lord, the unique grade retainer race, the gem, and the 6-winged angel would all be his. This was a perfect start, far beyond anything from his past life. The only obstacle was the Holy Light Dragon King that would arrive in a few days. A legendary dragon at Diamond Rank 10 is sealed in there. Can you defeat it? Anelia raised her eyes toward the night and the hills, light shimmering in her gaze. Of course, Holy Lord. Where your will points, our swords shall follow. Jiang Yan stood outside the stronghold's gates, gazing at the dying embers along the horizon. He did nothing else. Whether it was the dragon or the 6-winged angel, their combat power far exceeded anything at this stage. Before absolute power, any scheme was meaningless. This sovereign-level dungeon seemed to test luck more than anything else. In his past life had valued strength, but the myriad realms seemed to believe that becoming the strongest required luck as well as hard work. Anelia folded her wings and stood behind him, saying confidently, "Holy Lord, there is no need to worry. The fallen dragon must be judged. I will not allow it to disturb you." Jiang Yan nodded helplessly. I completely believe you. failing the trial. He had just activated Ultimate Ascension, only for it to fail to trigger several times in a row. Her skills were already at the highest level, and Angel's skills were far more unique. There was simply no substitute for them. That meant Analia was covered in max-level unique skills. What could that stupid dragon possibly use to fight her? Several days with her, Jiang Yan realized that this young angel took things far too seriously. In her eyes, every living being in the world should worship the Holy Lord of Light, and anyone who did not was a heretic. She had already driven all 700+ goblins out of the stronghold. She even said that those who were not devout enough should be sent to the 3rd-star prison to be reformed through 27 punishments. Images of the star prison's punishments appeared. The goblins were so terrified that they fled without even stopping to pick up their gold coins. She even leveled an entire mountain range in front of the stronghold, simply because nothing should obstruct the Holy Lord's line of sight. Jiang Yan had no choice but to spend an entire day correcting her habits. Times had changed, and they could not be so high-profile yet. Of sunset faded. A resounding dragon roar came from the distant mountains, drawing nearer and shaking the heart. A notification from the myriad realms followed. The sealing barrier had vanished, and the fallen Holy Light Dragon King had locked onto Jiang Yan. He had to survive until the barrier was restored. Jiang Yan smiled. Sounds like it's in quite a hurry, and very angry. Killing intent chilled Analia's eyes as she stepped forward and bowed. Holy Lord, please permit me to slay this heretic. What the angel race is capable of. Jiang Yan nodded. As you command. Her 6 wings spread wide, and white light poured down, driving away the darkness and the dragon's oppressive aura. Analia shot into the sky. At the same time, a grayish-white figure more than 300 feet long emerged on the horizon. Mist from head to toe. It was the Holy Light Dragon King, Abrick. The dragon immediately locked onto Jiang Yan and roared, "You damned thief, now." Before it could finish, a beam of light that tore through the night came crashing down, smashing it straight out of the sky and into the ground. Analia drew her sword, her expression cold and indifferent. Disrespecting the Holy Lord makes you a heretic. You must be executed. Abrick raised his dragon head while cursing, but the moment he saw the 6-winged angel shining with golden light in the night sky, he fell silent. That terrifying pressure made him tremble instinctively. Her life rank was clearly far above his. He cast a spell using the power of the world, compressing his 100-meter dragon body down to 3 meters. This was his strongest combat form. The next second, Abrick turned into an arrow and shot toward Analia, his razor-sharp dragon claws slashing down fiercely. Her sword swept across the sky and forcibly blocked the blow, sending both of them flying backward. Analia quickly began to chant. A golden magic circle rose, and the phantom of a Valkyrie merged into her body. Spell. Holy Spirit Possession. Her aura surged in an instant. Using the recoil force to turn back, Abrick lunged at her again, and the two battled through dozens of exchanges in the night sky. The clash of metal rang out without pause. Every one of Analia's strikes blocked his claws and left wounds across the dragon's body. Changing angles, yet still gained no advantage, and fine cuts soon covered its body. Abrick groaned inwardly. After stacking dragon language magic with impact force, his power had at least tripled. Yet this angel, who had nothing to brace against, could effortlessly block every attack. How was he supposed to fight that? Analia frowned slightly. She was a divine magic angel, not skilled in brute force, and though she was only gold rank now, this fight had dragged on far too long. Was watching from below. She could not let her future colleague know that she couldn't defeat a single fallen dragon. With that thought, she sent the dragon flying with one slash. Divine power boiled through her body as a golden hexagram lit up the entire night sky. Heretic, repent for the sins you have committed. Heavenly divine art, greater prophecy. Abrick's body suddenly froze. Tears streamed from his dragon eyes as he murmured, "I am guilty. I shouldn't have." Free, covering his mouth in shock and fury. He had nearly confessed all the embarrassing things he'd done. Greater prophecy lasted only 3 seconds, but for Analia, that was enough. Holy flames blazed along her sword, while a hexagram magic circle appeared above the dragon's head. All evil shall be reduced to ash in the flames. Blazing flame, judgment. Beams poured down like a torrential rain, completely swallowing Abrick. Amid a thunderous blast, Scales and blood scattered through the air as the dragon crashed heavily to the ground. Analia flashed after him, raising her sword wreathed in holy flame. Cough, wait. Dust. The dragon cried out with difficulty. But Analia ignored him, and her flaming sword continued its descent. Anna, wait. Jiang Yan spoke just in time, and the blade stopped an inch from the dragon's head. Light Holy Dragon King looked utterly miserable, covered in crisscrossing wounds and bleeding profusely, his head hanging limply against the ground. Wait, I have something to say, Abyssal said weakly. Remembering all the strange things from before, Jiang Yan asked directly, Don't tell me you want to surrender? Blew open, filled with surprise. How did you know? Jiang Yan didn't answer, but it wasn't hard to figure out. When his treasury had been looted earlier, he had likely flown into a rage and acted irrationally. But during their actual fight just now, he had clearly held back. If he truly hated Jiang Yan, he should have captured this defenseless level 1 challenger first and used him to restrain Analia. He had been standing out in the open, and the dragon never touched him, focusing only on fighting Analia to the death. Deliberately losing to a challenger meant he clearly wanted to surrender. Anna, heal him first, Jiang Yan ordered. Then, looking at the dragon after it had regained some strength, he said, Now talk. Abyssal raised his head and forced out 2 tears. Us working stiffs have it way too hard. For cruel demon lords who leave bodies everywhere we go. But in reality, I don't have a single dragon right. Whenever we're needed, they unseal us and make us fight for our lives. When we're not, they freeze us up. You can't even feel time passing, blink once, and it's time to go back to work. No pay, no freedom. After working for over a decade, my fiancé ran off, my online girlfriend dumped me, and even my rich older lady found herself a new lover. Get to the point. Jiang Yan cut him off with a frown. This guy was getting more ridiculous by the second. Throat, and finally turned serious. I've always wanted to quit. But only when challengers defeat the gatekeeper can we use the contract to pledge ourselves to them and escape our confinement. But the rules of the Myriad Realms require gatekeepers to appear to give it their all. We absolutely can't go easy on challengers. The previous challengers were too weak. Even if I wanted to help them in secret, it was useless. Then I met you. One look was all it took for me to know you were a once-in-a-generation genius. Even gods might not be able to bypass all 108 restrictions and steal my treasury. Off a chunk of dragon meat with her sword and warned coldly, Do not disrespect the Holy Lord. Abyssal hastily changed his words. Borrow. At the very least, this proves you possess tremendous talent, so I've decided to take a gamble. Few people ever took part in a sovereign-level trial, and the chances for Abyssal to appear were even rarer. He was unwilling to miss this one and only chance to break free. The dragon claw and carved a contract formation into the ground, asking to form an equal partnership contract with Jiang Yan. Either party could terminate unilaterally. But Jiang Yan did not agree right away. Instead, he looked at Analia. Are there 11 other seraphim like you? Analia answered truthfully. She was only one of the 12 seraphim, responsible for divine arts and serving in a support role. Her direct combat power was relatively weak, ranking only 10th. Above the 12 seraphim stood for archangels, any one of whom could easily defeat them. And immediately changed. Secretly, he cast a dragon language truth spell and confirmed that Analia was not lying. Jiang Yan then asked about the 4 archangels, but Analia seemed troubled. She hoped the 4 of them could explain matters to the Holy Lord themselves, asking only that Jiang Yan put in a good word for her later. Jiang Yan smiled and shook his head. Then forget it. By the way, what did you just say? He lowered his dragon head, quietly dispelled the equal contract, and redrew the formation. Great Holy Lord, I request to pledge my loyalty to you. This time, he was applying for a subordinate contract. Once it was signed, Abyssal would become Jiang Yan's subordinate. So long as an order did not violate the contract, he would have to obey it. After a brief moment of thought, Jiang Yan agreed. This was the boss of a sovereign-level dungeon. If he had not summoned an area, even all the trial takers in this round combined might not have been able to defeat it. Immediately displayed Abyssal's information, a legendary, diamond rank 10 fallen dragon skilled in dragon breath, dragon language magic, and the Dragon King's body. He had originally mastered holy light magic, but after falling from grace, he lost the light's favor and could no longer use that power. Jiang Yan noticed that Abyssal overall rating had actually dropped. He quickly understood why. The entire treasury had been emptied, and without the boost from its equipment and items, his combat power naturally declined. Anna, heal him. Now that he was one of their own, Jiang Yan could hardly leave him lying there. Anaria sheathed her sword and began chanting a divine spell. A thick beam of golden light descended from the sky onto Abyssal's massive body, and his wounds rapidly healed. A notification rang out across all realms. The Guardian had been defeated, and the dungeon would end in 1 hour. Once the dungeon ended, the top 10,000 trial takers in the regional rankings would all qualify to enter the Tower of Inheritance. With the matter finally settled, Jiang Yan let out a long breath and simply waited for the dungeon to end. But Abyssal, newly healed, seemed to suddenly remember something and hurriedly spoke. Master, there's something I must report. We need to act quickly, or we'll miss a golden opportunity. Trade really include a rule allowing purchases on credit? Jiang Yan looked stunned. Abyssal swore it was true, saying he had a dragon merchant pen pal who traveled across the realms, and that the merchant had told him the laws of trade permitted credit, provided one had sufficient reputation and status. But Jiang Yan shook his head. Of the few of them, no one seemed to meet those requirements. Abyssal immediately grew anxious and raised a dragon claw to point at himself. I'm Abyssal, the Holy Light Dragon King. My name alone is worth 100 million soul crystals. Then he looked at Anaria and cautiously asked whether buying on credit would go against her faith. But Anaria remained calm. The Holy Light created the world. All things should offer their faith, including objects. Abyssal immediately chimed in. Jiang Yan looked at a six-winged angel who had only just awakened and a dragon who had been sealed away for years, and truly had no idea where they got the confidence to buy on credit from a demigod obsessed with money, legendary longbow, and the contract capable of summoning golden warriors. Jiang Yan gritted his teeth. At worst, he would embarrass himself once. Let's go. Abyssal, take us there. Down pavilion at the island's northeastern corner. The red-nosed old man was materializing the soul crystals he had earned one by one, happily counting his money. He figured that anything he had casually looted from the ruins and that had survived the world's destruction had to be hiding some secret, so selling it at a high price wasn't exactly cheating the buyer. To leave, he suddenly sniffed the air, and his expression instantly changed. Damn it, whoever's coming means trouble. He hurriedly put away the soul crystals, hoisted his sack over his shoulder, and tried to make a run for it. But a 100-meter dragon and a six-winged angel had already blocked his path from both sides. The red-nosed old man caught another unfamiliar scent and realized someone was hiding behind a rock. And you behind the rock, get out here. Jiang Yan awkwardly stepped out. Old sir, it's been a while. The old man recognized him at once, immediately hugged his sack tight, and looked utterly wary. The stench of poverty. What are you doing here if you have no money? Let me tell you, I'm very strong. Jiang Yan coughed lightly, saying he lacked experience, then turned and asked the other two to demonstrate. Lever. Anelia immediately flew forward. She said coolly, Weak goblin, I am a believer of the Holy Lord of Light. Anelia, the 10th seraph of heaven. I now declare your goods requisitioned. Jiang Yan's expression changed. No matter how he heard it, that sounded like a demand to kneel and hand over money. Sure enough, the red-nosed old man frowned as the aura of a demigod faintly spread outward. He explained, Don't misunderstand. We just want to buy on credit. Buy on credit? The old man swept his gaze over the three of them, his face full of disdain. A level 1 apprentice lord and an unknown high-level life form. Neither of you qualifies. Yaberlik immediately shrank down and squeezed his way forward. Then what about me? Yaberlik, the Holy Dragon King of Light. Surely I qualify. The man sneered, saying he had heard of Yaberlik's reputation. A stingy miser, a heartless bastard wanted by 37 dragon maidens, the disgrace of the Holy Dragons of Light. And now, he was merely a beast of burden who had lost his freedom, not even as good as Jiang Yan. All three of their faces darkened on the spot. Anelia and Yaberlik simultaneously asked Jiang Yan for permission. Master, please allow us to teach him a lesson. Jiang Yan nodded. Don't go too far. At least leave him breathing. The red-nosed old man staggered back 2 steps, desperately unleashing his demigod aura, out with his tail, and sent him flying straight into the sky. Anelia immediately began chanting, and a massive fist the size of a small mountain formed in the sky, then came crashing down on the old man, his screams instantly echoing across the island. Half an hour later, Jiang Yan looked thoughtfully at the bruised and battered interdimensional merchant. It seemed that, like goblins, this guy was the type who could easily be crushed by opponents above his level. Not buying on credit was completely out of the question and was about to leave with the others, when the red-nosed old man struggled to his feet and called out to stop them. Wait, you can choose one item. Jiang Yan froze. Reluctantly, the old man explained that under the special trading rules of the novice zone of all realms, as a form of fair trade, since they had one, they naturally had the right to choose. After saying that, he tossed the list to Jiang Yan and urged them to get the hell out. He even cursed Jiang Yan as a freak, an apprentice lord with a gatekeeper serving him and such powerful followers. He bowed. Thank you, sir. I'll never forget this kindness, and I will repay it someday. As for what to choose, he had already made up his mind on the way there. With the trial of the Tower of Inheritance just ahead, nothing mattered more than immediate combat power. I choose the mercenary contract, Great Swordsman. Poured in one after another. Jiang Yan had finally cleared the wrath of the fallen Dragon King, officially activating his Lord qualification, while his talent, Ultimate Ascension, became a permanent ability. After he bound the Angel's heart, his temporary goblin followers were released, and his sole follower race, the Angel race, would take effect once he officially entered the Abyss. Overall rankings, trading hub, and forums of all realms were unlocked at the same time, and clearing a Sovereign Tier dungeon also earned him 16 survival points. Jiang Yan quickly searched through the notifications and pinpointed the two most important ones. The first was his qualification to challenge the Tower of Inheritance for taking first place in the regional trial assessment. Jiang Yan chose no without hesitation. The system informed him that he would be forcibly teleported in 30 minutes. The other notification gave him a chance to draw a class. Gained qualification for the Tower of Inheritance, he could save that opportunity for now, and draw from higher-weighted classes after the challenge was over. This was one of the ways lords surpassed ordinary class holders. Lords command large numbers of followers, but they could also change classes to grow stronger themselves. I choose to save it. Jiang Yan did not hesitate in the slightest. In his previous life, he had rushed to change classes, wanting only to gain more combat power, so he could climb to higher floors in the Tower of Inheritance. But things were different now. With a six-winged angel and the Dragon King at his side, combat strength was utterly insignificant. Rather than scrambling to strengthen himself now, he might as well save the opportunity for a higher ceiling. After making his choice, Jiang Yan took out an azure contract. Engraved on it were 12 imposing men clad in heavy armor. Swordsman mercenary contract worth 350,000 soul crystals. A flash of light passed, and 12 fully armed warriors appeared before him. My lord. The 12 men bowed in unison. Jiang Yan checked their attributes. These great swordsmen were human units at gold rank 10, with the 3 skills Heavy Strike, Armor Break, and Shield Wall, and an overall combat power of 1,288. To angels or dragons, but among humanoid followers, they were mid to high tier units. They had the potential to reach Diamond rank 10 and would be considered elite even under an ordinary Divine Lord. More importantly, they had encountered Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan looked at them and said calmly, I will grant you greater power. His talent, Ultimate Ascension, activated at once, and notifications began flooding in. Attention to the upgrades to Heavy Strike and Armor Break. No matter how powerful those offensive skills became, they could not compare to a casual strike from Analea. What truly surprised him was that 2 warriors' shield wall had completed its ascension, evolving into a lost skill. As long as the shield stands, so does the warrior. Shield-type weapon. The user can designate one person to protect. As long as the user remains alive, no attack can get past the shield to harm the target. Jiang Yan himself had almost no combat ability, and this skill perfectly made up for that weakness. As the skill advanced, the Great Swordsman's ratings generally rose to around 2,000. A force not to be underestimated. Good. Prepare for the Tower of Inheritance challenge. We are willing to serve the Lord. All the great swordsmen replied in unison. Prepared for battle, the outside world was completely shaken by the assessment results. At the Federal Military Academy, several elderly men stood watch by the rankings, waiting for news. They had only hoped this year's class would produce a few more who passed the hard difficulty. After all, pressure on the front lines was mounting, and if the lower-level spaces fell again, the consequences would be unimaginable. The screen suddenly flickered, and the assessment results were officially announced. The sovereign rank, and 1 had passed the hard rank. 12 had passed the normal and elite ranks. At first, some were disheartened that there was only 1 hard rank passer. But when they saw the number at the very top, the sovereign rank, the elderly men were all stunned. Functioning? Someone couldn't help but wonder. But an assessment system directly controlled by the Supreme AI was nearly incapable of making an error. They immediately opened the regional rankings for this year's class. First place, Origin Star Federation, Jiang Yan, Sovereign Rank. Luo Qinyu of the Starvale Empire, Desperate Rank. Third place, Luo Chun, Hero Rank. It really is Sovereign Rank. And it's Jiang Yan from Command Class 1. The elderly men were both shocked and delighted, but then one of them suddenly turned pale. We must find a way to keep him. There was no anonymity in the myriad realms, so the news that Jiang Yan had cleared the sovereign rank couldn't be kept secret. The Starvale Empire might not compete for ordinary geniuses, but they would never let a sovereign rank assessment passer, the first of his kind, slip away. Inside the Starvale Empire's embassy in the Federation, an ultra-long-range directional portal lit up, and a humanoid man stepped out. The officials had long been waiting outside. The man gave a slight nod and tossed out a token. His Majesty's verbal decree. Spare no expense to recruit Jiang Yan. He accepted the order, without the slightest surprise. More than the lower civilizations, they understood that the sovereign rank assessment was far more than just a higher starting point. Behind it lay a qualification beyond imagination. A towering spire stood eternally, piercing the heavens. Nebulae shimmered and faded beyond the tower, vast and abyssal. The entire tower had 20 floors, each one a world of its own. At that moment, spatial gates opened one after another, and examinees from various temporary planes descended before the tower. I'm back again. Jiang Yan stepped through a spatial gate and gazed at the tower, his eyes filled with a touch of nostalgia. Her wings behind him and stood quietly. The sight of a man accompanied by a 6-winged angel instantly drew every eye. Staring at Analia, someone couldn't help whispering, "What race is she? She's unbelievably beautiful. That pretty boy is so damn lucky. Her rank must be incredibly high. My lava lizard is so scared it won't even go near her." Soon, someone recognized Jiang Yan and hurriedly lowered his voice. "Don't talk nonsense. That's a 6-winged angel. He's Jiang Yan. His combat power is 10 times higher than second place." The area instantly fell silent, as everyone quickly checked the regional rankings. On the regional total combat power rankings, Jiang Yan held first place with 174,668 points, while Luo Qinyu in second had only 16,913. The follower rankings were even more outrageous. The 6-winged angel in first had a rating of 99,999, while the Holy Light Dragon King in second had 51,233. Both belonged to Jiang Yan. Once the news spread, most people instinctively put some distance between themselves and Jiang Yan, their eyes filled with curiosity and wariness. Anyone who had passed the trial of all realms was no fool. Even if Jiang Yan came from a level 2 civilization, no one dared look down on him because of his background anymore. Those who thought too highly of themselves. A burly giant with a massive python coiled around his shoulders strode forward and blocked Jiang Yan's path. "I'm Roni Tusk, young chieftain of the Tusk tribe in Nebula Valley. The Origin Star Federation you belong to is directly under my clan's jurisdiction." Jiang Yan looked at him expressionlessly. "What do you want?" The giant python slithered down to his waist, hissing a threat. "I don't believe you cleared a sovereign-level dungeon. You must have found a shortcut. Tell us. We're all under the Stellar Empire, and keeping it all to yourself isn't very smart." His words sounded reckless, but he was actually using his status to pressure Jiang Yan while tying everyone to the same interests. The people who had been about to leave all stopped. Who wouldn't want to know the secret to clearing the sovereign-level trial? They thought Jiang Yan, being from a lower civilization, might not have adjusted to his new status yet and would choose to back down. Inwardly, in his past life, he might have been intimidated by that line of reasoning, but now he knew that taking even one step back would only make them push harder. The next second, a mechanical notification abruptly rang out. "Challenger Jiang, Yan has initiated a regional life or death battle request. Please choose whether to accept within 1 minute. Roni and everyone around him turned pale. Without another word, Jiang Yan had challenged them all to a life or death battle. He clearly didn't regard any of them as a threat. Jiang Yan for being arrogant, while others hid in the crowd and stirred things up, but every last one of them silently chose to decline. Give them a break. With a combat power rating of 170,000, he was practically an ordinary god in the novice zone. Even if everyone here joined forces, they still wouldn't be enough for Jiang Yan to slaughter. The countdown ended, and the life or death battle never began. Jiang Yan said flatly, "If you don't dare accept, then get lost." Right ahead. Roni stood in his way, but didn't dare truly make a move. Analia gently beat her wings, blowing the burly man aside as if brushing away trash. Unable to save face, Roni forced himself to threaten, "Don't think clearing the sovereign-level trial makes you invincible. You're just from a level 2 civilization." Jiang Yan stopped, his tone calm and sincere. "You should be grateful that attacking each other isn't allowed here. Say one more word, and I won't mind tracking down your abyssal world and sending you to meet Satan." Roni's face flushed red. His lips moved, but in the end, he didn't dare keep shouting. The times had long since changed. Real-world technology and laws couldn't harm beings from the abyss or the myriad realms. I've had powerful gods. They were all trapped on the abyssal battlefield, and Stellar Empire law also forbade its vassal civilizations from freely waging war against one another. Jiang Yan entered the Tower of Inheritance just like that. After he left, the people from before once again began making threats, trying to salvage what little pride they had left. Just then, a cold snort came from behind them. What a bunch of trash. The crowd turned around angrily, only to see a young woman in a pale yellow gown approaching slowly, surrounded by several attendants. Exquisite, and she carried herself with noble grace. A faint star-shaped mark flickered at the center of her forehead, the symbol of the Stellar Empire's imperial family. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, and they hurriedly forced smiles. "Your Highness, the princess." The young woman gave a disdainful snort, passed by the crowd, and headed straight forward. "That guy, he does seem a little interesting." A flicker of curiosity crossed her eyes as she stepped into the Tower of Inheritance without hesitation. To the Lord-class Tower of Inheritance. This tower has 20 floors, and the difficulty will continuously increase with each floor. On every floor, you will face a monster siege. Eliminate them to advance to the next floor. The total number of troops you may deploy cannot exceed 50. Through 9 to receive a small number of survival points and rare class rewards. Floors 10 through 19 reward legendary classes, while floor 20 offers classes of mythic rank or higher. The first floor challenge, Web World, will begin in 5 minutes. Please prepare yourselves. As soon as the prompt ended, Jiang Yan activated War Summon. Danced from laws glowed in his palm as the dragon Abrick and 12 golden greatswordsmen appeared. This was a basic skill every lord learned after changing classes, allowing them to temporarily store their troops. Jiang Yan swiftly gave the order. "Abrick, you'll take the lead for the first 10 floors. Anna, support from the center. The rest of you, form up at the marked positions. Do not let the monsters get close." Abrick transformed into his true 100-meter-long form and circled above the group. Analia put away her longsword and took out a golden holy tome. The 12 greatswordsmen formed a nearly circular battle formation, protecting Jiang Yan at its center. Greatswordsmen raised their shields, and 2 soul links descended upon Jiang Yan. This was the law skill evolved from Shield Wall. As long as the shield remains, so does its bearer. Soon, hundreds of water jar-sized spiders poured out from a kilometer away. They crawled with terrifying speed, their vicious mandibles and densely packed eyes making everyone's scalp crawl. Spiders. They could spray venom, and after death, smaller spiders would split out from their bodies. In his previous life, many lords had fallen to them. Even Jiang Yan had only barely cleared the stage with Godspeed and Centaur archers. But this time, it was almost absurdly easy. Abrick tucked in his wings and skimmed across the ground at high speed, the raging gusts blasting the spider swarm into the air. Tremble, vermin, beneath the feet of the great holy dragon king of light. His excited roar was followed by sweeping blasts of dragon breath. The broodmother spiders were reduced to ashes in droves. never even getting the chance to split into smaller spiders. Against a true dragon, they had no power to fight back. Seeing that few enemies remained, Jiang Yan suddenly said, "Leave one alive. Don't hurt it." Li retracted his claws, carefully pinched the last spider by a leg, and brought it before Jiang Yan. "Anna, can you keep it from moving?" "Of course, Holy Lord." Anna opened the holy tome and softly chanted, "When holy light is angered, even the wind stands still." Invisible chains bound the broodmother spider, leaving it unable to struggle. Jiang Yan took out the dagger he had swiped from the assassin goblin and drove it down. With a clang, the dagger failed to pierce its body. The broodmother spider rolled its eyes as though silently mocking him. Strange expression and hurriedly covered his mouth with a dragon claw. Only then did Jiang Yan remember that he had not yet completed his class change, so his base attributes were too low. The next moment, a prompt from the realms sounded. "You have received the blessing of holy light magic." All attributes greatly increased. Anna gently reminded him, "Holy Lord, try again." The dagger again and repeatedly stabbed at the spider's body. As he tested it, he recorded the data. The carapace on its back had average defense, while its abdomen was less protected. The left side of its chest seemed to be a vital spot, as it reacted violently when struck, but the keratin on its legs was exceptionally hard. Then he had Shield 1 break off a section of the spider's leg to test its toxicity. Reached a conclusion. The poison is mild and fast-acting. Anyone above bronze rank can ignore it. Those below bronze rank will be paralyzed, and the toxin can stack. Jiang Yan nodded and recorded all of the information. 1,000 from each class could enter the Tower of Inheritance. Nearly all detailed intelligence was monopolized by powerful factions. Even after spending a fortune, the Federation had only acquired basic information on the first 5 floors. In his previous life, Jiang Yan lacked the strength to access such things, but now he had the means. He planned to compile a detailed guide, helping Federation challengers while selectively selling it to other civilizations for profit. Important step. "Anna, lend me your holy angel sword." Without hesitation, Anna removed her sword and handed it to him. Jiang Yan first marked cutting lines with a dagger, then used the holy sword to dissect the broodmother spider. The venom sacs, internal organs, and various other organs were soon neatly arranged to one side. It will run down his spine. "Master, why are you so skilled at this?" Without looking back, Jiang Yan said, "I took an elective course on anomalous creature anatomy. I'm rather interested in the structures of unknown, powerful creatures." The dragon couldn't help shuddering. It was only a weak dragon that had been beaten senseless by a 6-winged angel. It didn't count as some unknown, powerful creature, did it? Be good. Jiang Yan looked at the results with satisfaction. That should do it. Let's move on to the next floor. With that, he ended the broodmother spider, which was barely clinging to life, with a single slash. Ground. A massive door slowly opened. "The first floor of the Tower of Inheritance has been cleared. You have received 1 survival point, and your class reward weighting has increased by 1. Rewards will be distributed after the final settlement." Took a deep breath and led the way through the door. The scene before them was completely different from the first floor, like an enormous prison cage. Countless iron pillars descended from the sky, trapping everyone within an area 5 kilometers across. At the sight of it, Jiang Yan sighed inwardly. This was where his previous life had ended. This stage severely countered the Godspeed talent and Centaur archers, leaving almost no room for skillful maneuvering. Second floor challenge, World of Deathmatch. It will begin in 5 minutes. Please prepare yourselves. As the announcement ended, the phantom forms of 3 giant bears, each 5 meters tall, slowly solidified in the distance. Boom, boom, boom. 3 giant bears, each like a small mountain, lumbered toward them, every step making the ground tremble. In such a confined space, the oppressive pressure was enough to drive most challengers to despair, but to Jiang Yan now, it was nothing. "Bring one of them over first," Jiang Yan ordered calmly. "You got it." Aberlich immediately enlarged his body and charged straight at them. The dragon coiled through the sky. Before it, the once towering demon bears looked as tiny as ants. Under the pressure of its rank, the 3 demon bears instinctively trembled. They stopped in their tracks, bared their fangs, and roared, as if trying to bolster their courage with sound. But Aberlich was enraged. How dare a few lowly magical beasts roar at a noble dragon? It lowered its ferocious dragon head and unleashed a dragon roar right in their faces. Sensing the brutal aura of the apex predator, the three giant bears' legs gave out, and they collapsed together. With a disdainful lift of its claw, Aberlick smashed two demon bears into bloody pancakes, then carried the last one back to Jiang Yan in its jaws. Had left Jiang Yan helpless in his past life, were now effortlessly killed in seconds. Their combined rating was close to 1,000, and three working together could even stand against a level 10 gold-ranked swordsman. Unfortunately, before a giant dragon, they had no right to resist. Just as the last demon bear tried to struggle, Analia pinned it in place with a binding spell. Jiang Yan pulled out a dagger and began testing it point by point. Its fur provides extremely strong defense. Ordinary weapons can barely pierce it. The eyes and nose are vulnerable. Mark them as weak points. Its static vision is poor, and its magic resistance is average. Data. He even had Analia repeatedly cast healing spells while he tested its wounds and resistances over and over. Suddenly, Jiang Yan swung the angelic holy sword and chopped off one of the bear's paws. Can anyone roast a bear paw? I'm getting a little hungry. Analia and Abrick exchanged a glance. This was clearly beyond their abilities. But one great swordsman stepped forward voluntarily. My lord, I used to work in the military kitchen. Somewhat surprised, Jiang Yan patted him on the shoulder. Not bad. It's yours. Removed his armor, cleaned the fur and claws off the bear paw, rinsed it thoroughly with water, then asked Analia to summon a flame of holy light. Blue-white flames sprang up. As he roasted it, he rubbed on the seasonings he carried with him. Grease slowly seeped out, and a rich aroma filled the air, making even Analia glance over several times. Half an hour later, the great swordsman carved off a large piece and handed it to Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan took a bite and nodded in satisfaction, faintly feeling his strength increase. Split the rest among yourselves. Once I finish dissecting this one, we'll head to the next floor. He walked over to the demon bear that had lost its front paw and continued dismantling its body. This piece of meat looks good too. It seems tender. Take it with us and use it for hot pot when we get back to the Federation. The demon bear's pupils contracted sharply. It watched Jiang Yan eat its flesh, dissect its body, and seriously judge which parts tasted better. Fear, humiliation, and pain erupted all at once. The demon bear let out a muffled groan and simply died on the spot. Eric's faith level toward you has increased. Current level, reverence. All monsters on the second floor have been eliminated. You have gained 1 survival point. Class reward weight +1. Please proceed to the third floor as soon as possible. The 2 notifications rang out at once. Jiang Yan froze, and before he could stop the angelic holy sword in his hand, it plunged straight through the bear's corpse. What happened? How did it die? I hadn't even killed it yet. Aberic's heart trembled, and he silently lowered his dragon head even further. His master was truly ruthless. He even gave it an extra stab after it was dead. Lost interest. Forget it. I've got enough data. Let's go to the next floor. The third floor held 100 steel-armored demon scorpions. As usual, Jiang Yan ordered, leave 2 alive. Kill the rest. Abrick worked especially hard, and floor after floor of monsters was swept away by the group with overwhelming force. On the 4th floor, they faced 200 giant-eyed monsters capable of firing disintegration rays, and Abrick accidentally crushed one of them. Jiang Yan could only ask Analia whether she knew a resurrection spell. After receiving a negative answer, he said helplessly, then dissect a few more. Data from live subjects is more accurate. In their path, the group reached the 10th floor without any difficulty. It resembled an enormous garden, covered in green grass and flowers, with a spring at its center and birds occasionally flying overhead. This was the highest floor anyone had ever reached within the Star Radiance Empire's territory. Clearing it would guarantee at least a legendary class profession or a related item. A notification followed. The 10th floor, Life Priest, will open in 5 minutes. The Gatekeeper is a special life form from a lost world. Jiang Yan's expression turned serious. Abrick, you'll lead the attack. Anna, be ready to provide holy light support at any time. Yes, Holy Master. Everyone grew solemn, while Abrick immediately shifted into his strongest combat form and flew to the front. Garden of Life. A kind-looking old woman emerged from beneath the shade of a tree, stooped over, and carrying a watering can in her hand. She looked completely ordinary, yet Abric turned to Jiang Yan. Master, if she had been a monster, he would have attacked without hesitation. But facing an old woman like this, he found himself uncertain. Slight shake of his head. Since she could communicate, this was a good chance to pry some information out of her. Besides, their side held the advantage in combat power, so he wasn't afraid of any tricks. The two great swordsmen raised their shields and quietly linked their protection skills to Jiang Yan. The old woman waved her hand. No need to be nervous. No one has reached this floor in many years. A dragon, a group of powerful guards, and a high-ranking creature I've never seen before. The old woman has no desire to fight. Jiang Yan asked cautiously, "What do you mean, ma'am?" "Keep me company and chat for a while, and I'll let you proceed to the next floor." "How does that sound?" Her gaze fell on Analia. "Young lady, your rank appears to be even higher than that dragon's. Could you tell me where you come from?" Analia shot her a cold glance without answering, her hand already resting on the angelic holy sword. Being of the holy light, she could vaguely sense the dark, decaying aura emanating from the old woman. If Jiang Yan had not wanted to gather information, she would have split this place apart with a single slash long ago. A flash of anger crossed the old woman's eyes, but her smile quickly returned as she turned to the great swordsman. "What fine warriors! You must be from the Silver Radiance Empire, right? That was once an incredibly powerful force." The expressions of several great swordsmen shifted slightly. Clearly, she had guessed correctly. This might mean these mercenaries came from the old era that had already been destroyed. He remembered that after the 20th Abyss trial a few years from now, sealed world fragments would open across the realms. Those ruins were extremely dangerous, but fragments left behind by powerful forces also contained abundant treasures and blueprints. Fragments related to the Silver Radiance Empire would be worth watching closely in the future. The old woman continued probing for information. "Which unit do you belong to?" "I have some history with the captain of the Silver Edge." Shield 7 couldn't help answering. "We only remember that we came from the Empire. We can't remember anything else." Up. Shield 3 rebuked him quietly. A subordinate should not speak without the Lord's permission. The old woman smiled even more happily. "Since you come from the faction of an old acquaintance, this old woman would feel even worse about making a move. Why not rest for a moment and have a bowl of Spring of Life to restore your energy and strength before continuing?" She took out a stack of small bowls and pointed at the spring in the center. "This is a rare treasure. Used directly. No need. If possible, please open the gate to the next floor, senior. We've already been delayed too long." The old woman looked toward the great swordsman again, but they merely shook their heads, not daring to say another word. "Sigh, what a pity. There are only 3 of you. Still far too few." Gradually darkened, and her laughter became shrill. Jiang Yan sneered and was about to order Aberlich to attack when a powerful sense of danger suddenly surged through him. 3 gray streams of air, each a different size, appeared out of nowhere. 2 thick streams shot straight at Shield 3 and Shield 7. The two swung their adamantine great swords to strike them, but it was useless. The gray currents effortlessly shattered the great swords, blasting the 2 fully armed gold-ranked great swordsmen into pieces as blood quickly seeped into the ground. The last gray current came straight for Jiang Yan. Analia instantly spread her wings to shield Jiang Yan, but the current passed through them like air and continued toward his chest. Did sharply. A causality-type skill. A golden hexagram spell circle unfolded behind her, and she immediately cast Greater Prophecy, but it was clearly already too late. Jiang Yan had no way to evade it. Even gold-ranked great swordsmen couldn't stop it, much less him, a mere ordinary person right now. The instant the gray current touched him, it seemed to be pulled away, suddenly splitting into 2 streams and turning to strike Shield 1 and Shield 2, who held the shields. With 2 deafening booms, the 2 great swordsmen were sent flying several yards away. Long as the shield bearer lives. So long as the shield bearer remains alive, no attack can bypass the shield to harm Jiang Yan. At the same time, Analia's voice resounded through heaven and earth. All evil shall disperse. No causality shall be established. Sever. Invisible ripples spread across the entire plain, and the Garden of Life collapsed as if it had been torn apart. The emerald grass turned into crimson chunks of flesh. The towering trees were actually shriveled corpses, while the spring was thick, dark red blood. Rotten flesh and strange sigils covered the area. True appearance. The gatekeeper's laughter came to an abrupt stop as she stared in terror at the six-winged angel hovering in the air like a goddess. Impossible. How could you break my barrier? Having narrowly escaped death, Jiang Yan's gaze turned completely cold. Anna, a burlic, kill it. Forward without hesitation. Countless tentacles rapidly sprouted from the flesh-covered ground, trying to bind it tightly, but it was all completely useless. Before entering the Tower of Inheritance, Jiang Yan had already used Ultimate Ascension on it. Although it hadn't triggered a new law skill, its Dragon King body had already risen to the highest level, rating past 50,000 and nearly doubling its strength alone. Aberlic merely swung its body, and every tentacle wrapped around it shattered. The old woman screamed in fury as her wrinkled skin suddenly split apart. A monster of flesh and blood crawled out from inside her, growing over 30 feet tall in just a few seconds. Still connected to the entire landmass of flesh and blood. 8 massive arms extended from its back, trying to stop the dragon. But Abric did not dodge. He unleashed dragon breath and swung his claws hundreds of times in an instant. All 8 arms were torn to pieces. Yet the flesh on the ground soon began to flow, reforming into arms to block him again. Immediately realized that this monster could control the flesh and blood of the entire world. The two sides fell into a stalemate. Although Abric was powerful, he could not break through the endless stream of tentacles. Move came from behind them. Analia floated in midair, raising her holy angelic sword with murderous intent blazing in her eyes. Endless flames roared along the blade. Flames, judgment. A golden sword beam split heaven and earth, and Abric immediately dodged to the side. Holy flames incinerated the fleshy arms, and even the ground kept evaporating. The monster was finally afraid, desperately summoning tentacles to block the attack. But its plan had fallen apart the moment Jiang Yan survived its causality skill. The 12 great swordsmen after the Lord died used their power to deal with the dragon, then surround and kill that unknown higher being. But now, the golden sword beam burned away all flesh, cutting it in two and reducing it to ash. Analia landed before Jiang Yan and dropped to one knee. I failed in my duty to protect you. Please punish me, Holy Lord. Guilt. If, as long as the shield stands, had not activated in time, the Holy Lord would have nearly been assassinated right before her eyes. A notification sounded. The blood demon priest, guardian of the 10th floor, had been slain. Paid it no mind, and simply helped the pale Analia to her feet. Get up. This isn't your fault. It's mine. He walked over to the 2 fallen great swordsmen and gave them a solemn bow. I'm sorry. My poor decision-making led to the deaths of 2 brave warriors. The remaining great swordsmen quickly responded that protecting the Lord was their duty. Remained silent. Things had gone too smoothly in this life. He had easily cleared the highest level dungeon, gained the loyalty of a powerful angel and dragon, and without realizing it, had grown somewhat arrogant. Looking back, the monster had been baiting them into speaking from the moment it appeared, and the ones attacked were Jiang Yan, Shield 3, Shield 7, and the others who had spoken. Ability could most likely directly attack any creature that made a sound within its domain, with its power depending on the target itself. Fortunately, Jiang Yan was almost powerless, so the 2 great swordsmen who activated their skills took the blow for him. But that was no excuse to shirk responsibility, or Abric eliminate the enemy directly. But he had insisted on toying with it, and nearly suffered a disastrous defeat. There were far too many special abilities across the myriad worlds, including methods that could kill instantly regardless of level. The best approach was to never give the enemy a chance to act. Abric will take the lead, and Anna will recover for now. Analia silently nodded. She was only at the 10th level of gold rank, and repeatedly using greater prophecy and flame judgment had indeed drained her greatly. Don't worry, master. Leave it to me, Abric replied loudly. Everyone stepped through the portal of light. The 11th floor, Thunder Purgatory, was about to begin. Thunder Titans appeared in the distance, and Jiang Yan actually breathed a sigh of relief. Though these monsters were powerful, they lacked those strange abilities. Give it everything you've got. With a mighty roar, Abric charged forward. Half an hour later, the lightning faded and cleared. On the 12th and 13th floors that followed, the monsters grew increasingly powerful, yet the Dragon King still defeated them one by one. A full 2 hours later, the 9-headed giant serpent on the 19th floor fell, all 9 of its heads torn apart by a brick. He, too, collapsed to the ground from exhaustion, and only barely recovered after Analia cast 2 consecutive healing spells. The world's interface, and the reward for clearing the stage appeared. Then a notification made everyone's expressions turn grave. The 20th floor held a true abyssal monster captive. Destroying it could they claim the Tower of Inheritance's final reward. And that monster possessed the strength of a first-tier demigod. Once they entered the 20th floor, they would be unable to leave unless they destroyed it. Demigod abyssal monster appeared. Jiang Yan's face immediately darkened. This was not a demonic creature tainted by abyssal energy, but an entity truly from the abyss. They were the mortal enemies of countless worlds and the source of destruction for innumerable realms. What's wrong, Holy Lord? Analia immediately noticed the change in his expression. Abric also leaned in. Master, who upset you? Leave it to me. For a moment, Jiang Yan asked directly. Can you defeat a first-tier demigod? Abric immediately lifted his head, claiming that holy dragons of light were the strongest race and could swat 2 demigods to death with 1 claw. He even bragged that he had once fought 3 minotaur demigods alone for a lady of the fairy dragon clan. But Jiang Yan added, what if it's an abyssal demigod? Abric was instantly at a loss for words. After a long pause, he stubbornly said, at the same rank, of course I can fight it, but I'm only diamond rank right now. He matched his own judgment. Most abyssal war machines were mass-produced, and demigod level ones were nearly comparable to legendary divine spawn. At his peak in his previous life, Jiang Yan could at most handle 3 abyssal demigods at once. Fortunately, such monsters were few in number, their power was fixed, and they could not continue to grow. Otherwise, the countless realms would have fallen long ago. After assessing both sides' strength, Jiang Yan decisively said, then let's retreat. Reaching this point had already exceeded expectations. Lords were not heavily dependent on class, and obtaining even a legendary or mythic class advancement would be enough. Have a way, Analia suddenly said, though she seemed somewhat hesitant. Jiang Yan cut her off first. If it's a forbidden spell that burns your life force, absolutely not. Analia shook her head and said she could cast Gate of Heaven to summon angelic spirits and form an angel battle formation. As long as she gathered 36 spirits, she could summon a trace of an Archangel Lord's phantom. That she did possess the Gate of Heaven skill, so he asked, can a mere trace of a phantom kill a demigod? Analia's face filled with reverence. A mere assembly line monster, any one of their lordships, even at gold rank, could easily kill it in seconds. But the cost was that she could summon only 1 spirit per minute and had to continuously maintain the Gate of Heaven. In other words, Abric had to hold that monster off head-on for at least 36 minutes. Abric, if you can't handle it, retreat. Don't force yourself. Gritting his teeth, Yabric said, if Master upgrades my Dragon King body to its highest level, and Lady Anna supports me, I can hold out for half an hour. What are the odds? 70%. Jiang Yan made his decision at once. All right, we'll gamble on it. Yabric seemed carefree. He never joked when lives were on the line. 70% meant at least a 90% chance. Jiang Yan manifested the remaining soul crystals and gave them to Analia to restore her mana. The Holy Codex appeared, and Analia began to chant as beams of holy light fell upon them one after another. 17 buff spells enhanced them, raising attributes such as defense and strength by 30%, while Jiang Yan's rating skyrocketed from 3 points to 30. He looked at the 10 great swordsmen. Yabric will handle it head-on, but the shockwaves may reach us. I'm entrusting my life to all of you. Their strength had surged, and they were brimming with confidence. Move out. Yabric led the way as everyone stepped through the central portal and entered the 20th floor. A notification sounded. The true trial would begin in 5 minutes, and in the distance, a monster dozens of meters tall stood frozen in time. It resembled a behemoth, with spikes growing from its back and blades for arms. The muscles all over its body writhed constantly, radiating a suffocating abyssal aura. Breathed a sigh of relief. This was the main enemy from his past life, the aberrant abyssal dreadbeast. Though powerful, it was a purely strength-based weapon with no special abilities, and it was not particularly intelligent. Jiang Yan warned Yabric that every piece of its flesh could turn into arms, mouths, or blades, so he had to be careful. Yabric entered battle mode, and chanted a dragon language spell. "Don't worry, master. Let me show it what I'm capable of first." Anelia flew high into the air and thrust her pale golden holy sword toward the void, where beams of light wove into a massive magic array. Gate of heaven, descend. A radiant phantom of a great gate slowly rose, as countless angels seemed to circle before it in praise, dispersing all the abyssal aura nearby. A four-winged angel condensed into form, bowed to Jiang Yan from afar, then flew to the edge of the magic array and began to pray devoutly. The breeze gradually faded, and a dark, corrosive power awakened completely with it. "I am the Holy Dragon King of Light. Monster, dare you give your name?" Yabrik shouted as he faced it head-on. The only answer he received was a deep, raspy voice. "Food." The abyssal dreadbeast's blood-red eyes flew open, and two crimson beams instantly tore through the air toward him. He sighed to evade them, cursing inwardly at the monster's lack of manners. His attempt to stall it with a few words had gone nowhere. "Good thing I prepared in advance. Void Dark Array, activate." He quickly recited the spell. For sinister ghostly arrays rose around the monster, their lights merging together to trap the abyssal dread beast inside an illusion. This was a power Yabrik had mastered after his fall, blending dragon language magic with secret demonic arts to create a boundless world of darkness. Within the illusion, poisonous mist continually corroded the mind. Any normal enemy unable to break the array would remain trapped until the caster's mana ran dry. For only a moment, the abyssal dreadbeast revealed a savage grin and repeatedly growled, "Kill, kill." The flesh on its arms churned and extended into razor-sharp blades, which it swung wildly in every direction, reducing rocks, trees, and grass to fragments in an instant. Then 5 or 6 more arms sprouted from its abdomen, continuing to destroy everything in sight. The poisonous mist had no effect on it whatsoever. Darkened. The array needed land to sustain it. If the ground beneath it was destroyed, he could only maintain the illusion with his own mana. He could not last much longer like this. With an angry roar, he withdrew the array and charged straight at the monster that had just broken free. His thick dragon tail swept out fiercely, catching the abyssal dread beast off guard and sending it flying. He immediately pursued it, claws and fangs striking together as he tore more than 100 wounds across the monster's body in an instant. But when he swung his tail again, the flesh where the monster had been struck caved in and transformed into countless sharp teeth that clamped tightly onto his tail. Several thick arms grabbed at him at once. Terror surged through Yabrik. If he were completely restrained, even the Dragon King's body would be torn apart. Just as he was about to sever the flesh of his tail, Anelia's ethereal voice suddenly rang out from behind him. "Freeze." The abyssal dreadbeast's movement stalled for only an instant, but Yabrik seized the chance to yank back his tail and retreat at top speed. The spell could barely control a monster like this for any time at all. Abaric's tail scales shattered, blood seeping out continuously. Yet the wounds the abyssal dreadbeast had just suffered were already completely healed, and it lunged at him again. This weapon of war had abandoned intelligence, retaining only its instinct to kill. Its regeneration and physical strength surpassed even dragons of the same rank. Shadow Assault. Balefire Barrage. Abrik unleashed one dark spell after another, trying to hold it back. Normally refused to use. Even after being expelled from the Holy Dragon clan, he had always considered himself the Holy King of Light Dragons. But now, he had been driven into a corner. The abyssal dreadbeast swept its arms sideways, instantly scattering the balefire as its flesh devoured the shadows. Abrik was utterly frustrated. If he were also a demigod, magic empowered by the laws would be at least 10 times stronger. He would never be in such a miserable state. But the monster's body had also fused with the law of strength. That was why it could repeatedly shatter magic through brute force alone. Cleaving strike, leaving a bloody wound over a foot long on it with his dragon claws, only to have an arm extending from its abdomen cut off his retreat. With a loud bang, he barely blocked 2 arms, but the remaining attacks still sent him flying, shattering nearly all the scales across his chest. At the critical moment, several beams of holy light flew in. One landed on him and stopped the bleeding, while the others blasted the abyssal dread beast and briefly slowed it down. Abrik looked back to see 30 angels praying devoutly near the angel gate, their golden pillars of light forming a vast, unbroken expanse. The grand hymns and chants grew clearer and clearer. While presiding over the magic array, Anelia was also casting spells to aid him. Abarak's spirits lifted, and he charged once more at the abyssal dread beast, which had yet to regain its footing. This time, he used only his dragon claws to attack. Even if he was caught, he could tear through flesh and escape in time. Vermin, die! With the angel battle formation nearing completion, the abyssal dread beast was clearly becoming more frenzied. It practically abandoned all defense, manifesting more than a dozen arms to attack madly as bone-deep wounds kept appearing across Abarak's body. Like a waterfall. If Anelia had not repeatedly turned the tide with the Greater Prophecy spell, he would have been torn to pieces long ago. But after losing too much blood, Abarak inevitably slowed down. The abyssal dreadbeast immediately seized the chance, its arms clamping tightly around the dragon's body. Another arm transformed into a razor-sharp blade and hacked viciously toward his waist. At that moment, the 35th angel had just appeared. The formation was about to reach its limit, and Anelia had to devote herself fully to maintaining it. Brief moment of clarity. He knew this strike was enough to cut him cleanly in two. Damn it, I still haven't confessed to the fairy dragon, and there's that purple dragon lady I just started seeing. Just as the blade fell, Jiang Yan's clear voice rang out. Shield 1, lock your skill onto Abarak. An invisible law descended without warning. The blade aimed at the dragon froze in midair, and the abyssal dread beast, body and all, was forcibly dragged toward Shield 1. Shield 2 had already taken position as well. The moment the monster's attack was about to land on Shield 1, it activated its skill and pulled the creature over again. The beast roared furiously, but it could only crash back and forth between the two shields, completely unable to break free. As it was restrained again and again, time quietly passed. At last, the 36th angelic spirit emerged from the gate. The final missing piece was fully restored, and countless rays of golden light shot into the sky. The angel battle formation was complete. It instantly became as bright as day, where countless streams of light converged. The phantom of a woman holding a scepter slowly emerged. Dressed in white, she wore a gentle expression, her eyes filled with compassion for all living things. All were the 12 wings gently beating behind her. Lady Aphina. All the angels, including Anelia, bowed at once. Aphina smiled faintly and lightly tapped her scepter. No need for formalities. Invisible ripples spread out in an instant, freezing the abyssal dread beast in midair as it lunged at Shield 2. Abarak, covered in wounds, was restored to perfect condition in the blink of an eye. Before Jiang Yan and gave a slight bow. Holy Lord. Jiang Yan's expression turned strange, and he could not help asking, who are you? Judging by the background of the myriad worlds, she seemed to be one of his subordinates. Yet the aura of this phantom far surpassed that of the Abyssal Demon God who had killed him in an instant in his previous life. I am Aphina. The holy light granted me life and the divine duty of salvation, and I am also your most devoted follower. Seeing Jiang Yan's confusion, she continued explaining that he was the second Holy Lord of Light foretold in the prophecy, and the one chosen by the Holy Light, making him the sole faith of the angel race. Asking for the moment, and simply asked how he could awaken them. Aphina told him that once faith in the holy light shone upon all realms, they would naturally fight for him. Jiang Yan immediately understood. In the end, he still needed enough power of faith. To ask more questions, Aphina's figure began to fade. The 36 angels praying within the magic circle, Anelia included, also grew increasingly pale. Aphina's expression shifted slightly as she hurriedly warned Jiang Yan. The current will of the world will not allow me to remain here for long. You must remember what I'm about to say. Epic of all realms, and our only chance to defeat the abyss. Since ancient times, those powerful beings sealed away in dust will awaken in this age. But the will of the epic rejects the gods of the old era, and they must trade faith for its acceptance. For the sake of faith, those gods will surely stop at nothing. You must be extremely careful, Jiang Yan. Speaking, a terrifying force as vast and dreadful as an abyss suddenly gathered above the dome. A cold, emotionless eye slowly opened, its gaze crossing space to fall upon Jiang Yan. A freezing, suffocating pressure engulfed him, and even Jiang Yan's thoughts seemed to come to a halt. Life can bloom only in the moment of withering. an incantation and tapped her staff against the ground, instantly dispelling the pressure filling the sky. Holy Lord, I must leave, or the will of the epic will harm you. Analia, until we descend, the Holy Lord's safety is in your hands. This is the purpose of my existence, your holiness, Analia replied solemnly. Smiling, Ifina flew back into the Gate of Angels, but before entering, she suddenly turned to look somewhere. Together with the 36 angelic spirits, Aberlich hurried over. That monster hasn't been taken down yet. Jiang Yan smiled and told him to look for himself. The abyssal terror beast had long since fallen silent. The flesh all over its body had lost its color, and Shield too then vented his anger by chopping it into mush. Ifina had cast before leaving, Jiang Yan said uncertainly. Maybe it got killed by a look? Aberlich was utterly shocked. A demigod-level abyssal war machine had died just from being glanced at. Analia, however, looked down on him for being so easily surprised. Jiang Yan then asked about the prophecy in detail, and Analia recalled. Most faith in the end would suppress the abyss and become the ruler of all realms. Jiang Yan couldn't help but get a headache. The abyss was troublesome enough, and now he had to face the awakening gods as well. As the Holy Lord of Light, the object of the angels' faith, he clearly could not avoid this struggle. But for now, he decided to enjoy the rewards of clearing the 20th floor. Since the Tower of Inheritance had appeared, perhaps no one had ever reached this floor before. And he received 209 survival points, 209 class weight, along with a mythic tier-linked treasure chest and an opportunity to inherit the highest tier class. The world brightened again, and a several-meter-tall mirror of origin appeared in the center. Jiang Yan to touch the mirror, which would match him with the most suitable class inheritance. And this time, the possible matches ranged from mythic tier to unique tier classes. Jiang Yan suppressed his excitement, stepped forward, and gently placed his hand on the mirror. Scanning. Please wait. The mirror's surface instantly turned pitch black. Aberlich couldn't help asking, Master, what class do you think you'll receive? Analia looked proud, convinced Jiang Yan would surely obtain a top-tier Holy Light class. All chimed in, saying Jiang Yan was humble, righteous, brave, and wise, the most favored by the Holy Light. Remembering what Ifina had said, the Holy Light chose you. Jiang Yan smiled modestly. I suppose so. Soon, the mirror spirit announced that the scan was complete and began gathering traits to match him with a class. Images then appeared on the mirror. In the first scene, Jiang Yan held a dagger and skillfully gutted a motionless spider. The image even explained, I'm just interested in the anatomy of powerful unknown creatures. In the second scene, he stood on a giant bear, gnawing on its paw while slicing off fresh meat with the angelic holy sword. Facing the terror in the bear's eyes, he calmly said, This meat is pretty good. I'll take it back to the Federation for hot pot. The third scene showed a kind-looking old woman with a face full of terror as Jiang Yan darkly ordered, Kill her. Jiang Yan finally lost it and protested. This mirror spirit does malicious editing too? This is pure slander. Ignored him completely, and the image finally froze on an abyssal terror beast hacked into a bloody pulp. Evaluation complete. You are savage, ruthless, and indifferent to life. You can strike without hesitation even against the elderly, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. Extracting traits, cruelty, viciousness, distortion, composure, matching a suitable class. The next moment, the mirror spirit announced, Congratulations, Challenger. You have obtained a unique tier class advancement, Undead Emperor. Light descended from above, completely engulfing Jiang Yan as the aura of the Law of Death filled the entire space. All 10 great swordsmen were too stunned to speak, while Aberlich wore an expression of just as I expected, growing even more fearful inside. Analia stood there silently with her brows tightly furrowed, no one knowing what she was thinking. 1 hour passed, then 10 hours, and only after 2 full days did the black pillar gradually fade away. Slowly opened his eyes, and the followers guarding nearby immediately gathered around him. Aberlich had barely called out, Master, when it met Jiang Yan's eyes and felt as though it had fallen into a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. That cold, terrifying majesty made it instinctively take 2 steps back. Jiang Yan came back to himself and touched his face in confusion. What is it? Aberlich quickly shook its head. Nothing. Congratulations, Master, on obtaining such a powerful inheritance. And found Analia staring fixedly at him, making him feel a little guilty. These angels had always called him the Holy Lord of Light, but now he had advanced into an undead emperor. How was he supposed to explain that? Matters involving faith were the most troublesome, so he could only force himself to speak. Anna, listen to me. But Analia answered solemnly, Holy Lord, I understand. Jiang Yan froze. What do you understand? Grew even more reverent. She said that in ancient myths, there had once been a powerful figure who made a great vow. Until hell is empty, I vow not to become a Buddha. Holy Lord, what you have done today is no less admirable than that. Undead Emperor is the most evil and sinister class. Anyone who gains such power would become a disaster for the world. But to control death and keep this power from falling into evil hands, you would rather bear this evil all by yourself. Or it must be incredibly painful for someone like you, whose heart is filled with light. Seeing how utterly sincere she was, Jiang Yan fell silent for a second, then nodded solemnly. That's right. Undead power will never corrupt my heart. I will master it, conquer it, and then purify it with the holy light. This path is destined to be difficult. Anna, are you willing to help me? I am. Analia replied excitedly. Wherever your will points, my blade shall follow. Footsteps forever, Holy Lord. Jiang Yan turned his back and finally let out a sigh of relief. He recalled the faith level on Anna's panel, blind faith. So the words, everything you say is right, carried this much weight. Understanding angel, Jiang Yan immediately checked the newly appeared class interface. The undead emperor possessed necromantic dominion, allowing him to command any dead creatures within range at the highest priority and turn them into undead. Imperial presence could restrain all beings summoned by necromancy, while the Hall of the Dead could consume death essence to permanently summon heroic spirits. The first summon was free. Death Harvest granted him death essence after each kill, while the talent, Infinite, gave him no limit on the number of summons he could have. Completely stunned. Ordinary necromancers usually started with only summon skeleton, and had to keep advancing to acquire higher-tier skills. Even a god-tier necromancer going all out could summon at most 10,000 skeletons, unable to surpass that limit due to the laws of the world. But the Undead Emperor began with 4 exclusive skills and the talent of unlimited summoning. Most was a lack of resources, and having their painstakingly trained elite forces die, forcing them to start all over again. The undead were different. As long as there were enough corpses, they could be summoned without limit, growing stronger with every battle, and could even turn a god's remains into god-tier combat power. A thought suddenly flashed through Jiang Yan's mind. I'm invincible.